Chapter 328 Analysis. Chapter 328 Analysis. Reverie _ Sword light filled the whole sky. This ultimate move's power far surpassed Ling Han's, till even a king like the nine-eyed beast wolf didn't dare to be careless. All of its hair stood up as flashes of lightning shot out at the same time from its 9 eyes, combining into one and forming a thick electric arc that fired towards Ling Han. To catch bandits, catch the ringleader. If Ling Han was annihilated, then this move's power would naturally disperse on its own. The lightning was also nine-eyed beast wolf's ultimate move. Shio, 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 sword lights decreased in size, greeting the lightning. Pa, 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 the sword lights were annihilated one after another, but at the same time, the lightning shrunk at a rapid pace. Each sword light was equivalent to Ling Han's full-strength attack, and although it wasn't enough to battle nine-eyed beast wolf's full-strength attack head-on, there were still many sword lights. With each sword light striking it, the lightning finally became as thin as a spider's thread, completely disappearing at last. At this time, only 300 sword lights remained. Hong. The nine-eyed beast wolf had already fired its ultimate move, so it couldn't possibly follow up with another one. It could only use its claws to guard its head. 300 sword lights struck, and the fierce clashes instantly produced flashes of blinding light. Ling Han slumped onto the ground. He truly gave it his all with the strike just now, directly drawing out all the origin power inside his body. If this couldn't kill the nine-eyed beast wolf, then he could only hide inside the Black Tower, wait for his origin power to recover, and then find this Beast King again. Fortunately, the nine-eyed beast wolf lay on the ground with fresh blood gushing out continuously. Its chest was slightly moving up and down, signaling that it was still alive. Kikasset received the mysterious 3000 head-on and was only heavily injured. Ling Han was deeply moved, but an intense fear arose in him toward the Heaven's Sword sect. Just what sort of force was it for it to possess such a terrifying ultimate move? Too shocking. Even with his Heaven-tier experience, it was still very hard to use this sword art. Moreover, this sword art's power was linked to sword chi, and not everyone could cultivate it to such a terrifying degree. Previously, when Ling Han pushed out 700 sword lights, he already guessed that the mysterious 3000's extreme should be at sword chi's consummation. Theoretically, a martial artist could cultivate to form 10 flashes of sword chi, but there were still geniuses that cultivated 11 or 12 flashes. So, if one flash of sword chi could evolve into 100 sword lights, then theoretically, one could cultivate 29 flashes of sword chi, making up the 3000. The first form was sword chi, so sword ray should initiate the second form. Sword ray was sword chi extrapolating in this way. The third form breaking limits could only be used when one grasped sword heart. The third form corresponded to 3 different stages in way of the sword. That the Heaven's Sword sect could stand erect for 10 millennia without collapsing was expectedly not without reason. Senior brother Jian Cheng, the battle ahead suddenly stopped. Could they have battled it out? A voice drifted over from afar. Hehe, battling so fiercely, we must go see just who it is. Another voice sounded. Ling Han hurriedly collected his thoughts and struggled to climb up. He only expended all his origin power. His physical stamina was still preserved. He walked staggeringly to the side of the nine-eyed beast wolf, picked it up, and with a thought, shio, he entered the Black Tower. In an instant later, 2 figures arrived immediately at the same time. It was 2 youngsters, only 24 or 25 years old, both looking handsome, confident, and out of this world. As for their cultivation, one was at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and the other was shockingly at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. How come there's no sign of anyone? The purpled-clothed youngster said. The other youngster that wore a blue garment lowered his gaze, looking at the traces left from the battle, and said, the battle just now was not between 2 people, but between a person and a beast. Senior brother Jian Cheng, how so? The purple-clothed person asked. The blue garment youngster let out a smothered laugh and said, there are claw marks everywhere. Can't junior brother you tell? The purple-clothed person laughed too, and refuted, couldn't it possibly be one person who used a claw-type weapon? It's certainly possible. The youngster in the blue garment nodded. He then pointed to the ground and said, however, there are still several footprints here, enough to prove that one side was a beast. Couldn't it be possible that two people battled, and one brought their pet beast? The purple-clothed person seemed to like nitpicking. The youngster in the blue garment laughed and said, "The footprints that belong to a human look exactly the same. Don't you tell me that the two people were wearing the exact same shoes and their sizes are exactly the same." Under this rebuke, the purple-clothed person paused, then muttered, "Could it not be possible?" This seemed to be his favorite expression. From the traces of destruction, the battle prowess of the person and the beast were quite astonishing. The youngster in the blue garment no longer spoke sarcastically to his companion, and looked at the battle traces seriously. He revealed a stern expression and said, "This battle prowess is at least 9 stars. 9 stars. The purple-clothed person was slightly shocked, and said, "Senior brother Jian Cheng, not to mention the people in the current exam, there aren't many spiritual ocean tier practitioners that possess 9-star battle prowess even in our winter moon sect." The youngster in blue garment nodded and said, "There certainly aren't many, but not too few either, at least several hundred. Who exactly was it that came here to battle with a beast? This blood." He revealed a shocked expression. There were large amounts of blood left by the 9-eyed beast wolf, which the traces had glowing crimson-colored lines of fabric in them. As the blood itself was red, if one didn't examine them closely, one would really overlook it. He thought of a possibility and cried out abruptly, "The 9-eyed beast wolf." "What?" The purple-clothed person also revealed a shocked expression. "I certainly heard that there was a 9-eyed beast wolf roaming around here, but the spiritual pedestal tier experts have searched for it and even flower blossom tiers swept over with their awareness, but they all found nothing at all. It should be it. This blood can't deceive me," the youngster in the blue garment said, revealing a smile at the corner of his lips. Interesting. One who could battle so fiercely with the 9-eyed beast wolf. Such a person is a worthy opponent. Ha ha ha. Even you as one of the 7 sons of the Ao family feel the urge to battle? The purple-clothed person laughed loudly. The youngster in the blue garment, Ao Jian Cheng, revealed an arrogant expression and said, "What's so interesting about bullying the weak? If I battle, I'll battle geniuses. Only stepping on geniuses is pleasurable enough. Ha ha ha, senior brother Jian Cheng, the one I'm most impressed with amongst the 7 sons of the Ao family is you, and that is precisely because you possess a strong cultivator's desire for battle," the purple-clothed person said. Ao Jian Cheng smiled faintly, but the arrogance in his expression didn't disappear as he said, "Let's go, there's nothing left to see here." The two came quickly and left quickly. Inside the Black Tower, Ling Han revealed a hostile expression. This guy was actually Ao Feng's son. Chapter 329, Slaughter. Chapter 329, Slaughter. Reverie _ Ling Han had previously heard the title The 7 Sons of the Ao Family, and now that he'd seen one, it was certainly a well-deserved reputation. Ao Jian Cheng was at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and to be able to rise above hundreds of those with the same cultivation, his battle prowess had to have surpassed 9 stars. Ling Han never underestimated himself, but his battle prowess now was only at 9 stars at the spiritual ocean tier. Unless he used the demon birth sword, that is, then his battle prowess could certainly increase by a few stars. After all, it was a 10th tier spirit tool. But, using the demon birth sword in front of so many of the winter moon sect's people, not only would he be unable to get the thunder battle armor, he also would have the demon birth sword taken away, unless he hid inside the Black Tower. In any case, he definitely wouldn't get the thunder battle armor. This was contrary to his plans. Fortunately, he already obtained the 9-eyed beast wolf and digested the benefits. After compacting his last fundamentals, he would be able to charge into the spiritual ocean tier. Other people who wanted to charge into the spiritual ocean tier could only dream if they didn't have a few months' time, but for Ling Han, 1 to 2 hours was enough. Even Feng Yang used only less than 10 days' time. Could he be inferior to Feng Yang? Speaking of Feng Yang, this guy should have already returned to the Winter Moon sect, and with the Winter Moon sect's ability, they could probably get him a prosthetic. Would he also attend this exam? After all, not to mention other people, this thunder battle armor would move him as well. Ling Han nodded inwardly. He definitely had to break through to the spiritual ocean tier, or else, Continually beating opponents at the spiritual ocean tier with the cultivation of the first layer of the gushing spring tier would inevitably cause suspicions. However, he first had to recover his power. With a thought, a piece of origin crystal instantly shattered and intense origin power surged out, surrounding Ling Han. Inside the Black Tower, Ling Han could do whatever he wanted. Instantly, origin power seeped into his skin, and after only a little processing from the spirit base, this origin power would be completely available for his use. This was why origin crystals could become the holy item of cultivatingit was easily absorbed. Unfortunately, it required one's complete concentration to be refined, and couldn't be used during battle. Thus, speaking of recovering in battle, one had to rely on medicinal pills, but for cultivating, normally, origin crystals and medicinal pills worked both. One origin crystal needed a spiritual ocean tier warrior spending an entire month to refine it, so the origin power within was abundant enough that, after refining this piece of origin crystal, Ling Han's strength was entirely recovered. However, he lost quite a lot of blood. Even if he ate several hundred-year-old ginsengs, he couldn't immediately recover it all. His expression was somewhat pale, but under the disguise, it was hard to tell. He exited the Black Tower. The nine-eyed beast wolf was already in his pocket and wouldn't leave his grasp no matter how hard it struggled. He now had to find Qi Yongyi and the others. Although he didn't care about the yellow dragon fruit, he naturally wouldn't give up what should belong to him. Moreover, he wanted to relieve Qi Yongyi and the others, telling them that he was still alive. After he received the yellow dragon fruit, he would find an excuse to leave to charge into the spiritual ocean tier, and there should still be enough time for him to collect tokens. If he didn't even make it into top 100, then that would be really amusing. He walked towards the place which they agreed upon, and very soon arrived there. However, before he'd gotten close, he heard ping, ping, pang, pang. They were sounds of weapons clashing and indistinct shouts of indignation. Could it be an internal conflict because of the yellow dragon fruit? Ling Han frowned and leapt upwards, appearing on top of a tree. Looking downwards, it looked practically like hell on earth. On the ground lay at least 10 corpses' severed heads, cut intestines, chests torn open, too horrible to look at. And these people were ones from the Rain Country, with only a few still alive. They were now lingering with one last breath of life, being attacked from all sides by 7 people. They could die at any time. Ling Han's gaze swept by. Of those he knew, several had died, such as Li Dongyu, Xia Chongguang, Huang Weizi. Those who weren't dead were Qi Yongyi, Bailey Tengyun, and a few others, riddled with scars and barely surviving by relying on their spirit tools. There were only 7 people in the other party, but 6 were in the late stage of the gushing spring tier, and one was even at the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. It was precisely because of his existence that Zhao Huan, Qian Wu Yong, and Hu Fengyu, the 3 of the best, were completely suppressed, forming a one-sided slaughter. One, you refused a toast only to drink a forfeit, so all of you go to hell. Zhong Yuan laughed coldly. He multitasked, not only suppressing the 3 in the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier, but also blocking those who sought to escape the battlefield. You guys will die a painful death, Qi Yongyi said with his teeth clenched as blood dripped down his eyes. Cursing belongs only to the weaker, useless grown. You guys aren't the first to be annihilated by me, and won't be the last. Zhong Yuan said coldly, without any pity. Ling Han's forefinger twitched, signaling that he harbored killing intent. I heard that in the Rain Country, there's a person called Ling Han who's very arrogant, daring to harm one of our sect's eldest chief's disciple. Zhong Yuan said like a cat toying with a mouse. In reality, there weren't many who died in his hands, but he achieved the essential result. If Ling Han were here now, you guys would be cruelly killed. Zhao Huan yelled out. Ha, a bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well dare to speak conceited nonsense. What genius could come out of a mere small country of the desolate north? Zhao Yuan smiled haughtily. Sometime later, I'll go to the desolate north, murder that Ling Han or whatever, and carry his head back. Senior brother Zhon is most imposing. Maybe Elder Chief Shi would be in good spirits and take Senior Brother Zhon as a disciple. Then would have to rely on Senior Brother Zhon's guidance and support. The other 6 bootlicked one after another. Zhao Yuan laughed aloud, appearing self-satisfied. Bullsh. Ling Han is already an Earth-grade alchemist. The Winter Moon Sect's sect master wouldn't dare touch him, let alone you. Besides, with Ling Han's strength, killing you is as easy as killing livestock. Qian Wuyong shouted sharply. Earth-grade alchemist? Zhong Yuan was startled momentarily, then burst into laughter. What a joke! An Earth-grade alchemy master could rise up from the tiny 9 nations of the desolate north. These country bumpkins were truly idiotic, dreaming right before their death. What's so funny? Let me have a laugh too. A cold voice sounded as Ling Han appeared on the field, both hands behind his back, his gaze baleful. Hu Yang. Qi Yongyi and the others cried out one after another. First was exultation that this guy was actually alive after luring away the 9-eyed beast wolf, but then came worry, immediately leading to a change in their expressions. A mere youth at the first layer of the gushing spring tier couldn't do much. They were still destined to be slaughtered, weren't they? Not everyone was a freak like Ling Han. Oh, another one that has come to die. Zhong Yuan sneered, snapping his fingers. Junior brother too, kill him. It was just a mere small fry at the first layer of the gushing spring tier. Yes. A youngster jumped out, and revealed a vile smile. Remember, the one who killed you is called Yu Gang Liang, a mere dreg. Stop with all the rubbish. Ling Han raised his legs, and with a pa, the kick hit the other's chest. Under the power's shock, that person was immediately sent flying, and as he floated in midair, with a pa, his entire body imploded. Hiss. In an instant, the entire place was silent, and everyone involuntarily stopped what they were doing. Chapter 330, Completely Exterminated. Chapter 330, Completely Exterminated. Reverie _ Honestly, the one called Yu Gang Liang was only in the 7th layer of the gushing spring tier, not very strong, but even if he wasn't that strong, the 7th layer of the gushing spring tier's battle prowess was enough to crush the 1st layer of the gushing spring tier by tenfold. However, he exploded from a kick. How was anyone supposed to accept this? This is called Wind God Kick. Ling Han randomly came up with a name. He didn't use his sword nor fists or palms only because he didn't want Qi Yongyi and the others to be suspicious of his identity. But how many gushing spring tier warriors like this were there? It was practically impossible not to be suspicious. Qi Yongyi and the others' eyes already lit up. See courting death. Zhong Yuan was infuriated, and yelled, "Go all together, and slaughter him. Slaughter him." This was supposed to be their hunt, but one of them was killed. How could he not be infuriated? The remaining 5 charged at the same time. Their cultivation was higher than Shu Gang Lian's, and even if they couldn't annihilate Ling Han 5 against 1, it shouldn't be a problem to fight on par. However, they were up against Ling Han. Wind God Kick. Ling Han sprung out, pa, throwing kicks continuously. Comprehension of one law meant comprehension of all other laws in martial arts. He already cultivated 7 flashes of sword chi on the sword's path, so as he flicked his legs, a flash of chi fired out, turning into a sharp sword and sweeping towards the 5 people. Every movement was a sword. His battle prowess now was enough to annihilate a normal opponent at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, so how could these 5 people rival him? His kick landed between the legs of one of them and powerful chi rose upwards, turning into a sharp sword and tearing that person in half. Hua Lolo, intestines, heart, liver, and brains spilled everywhere, an extremely gruesome sight. Even Ling Han didn't expect that his kick would fire out sword chi, having such an effect. But this explained that he was somewhat accomplished on the sword's path, able to turn his body into a sword, forming swords in all ways. Ling Han threw 4 consecutive kicks, and 4 more corpses that were completely indistinguishable lay on the ground. Everyone felt chills. Those were 5 late-stage gushing spring tier experts, but they were almost all killed instantly at the same time. How could anyone believe it? Zhao Huan and the others thought, could this guy really be Ling Han? Although he looked completely different, there couldn't be so many freaks at the 1st layer of the gushing spring tier in the world. Ling Han looked balefully at Zhong Yuan and said, "Now it's your turn." Zhong Yuan instinctively felt a chill from Ling Han's gaze. Just what kind of gaze was it that could make him tremble from the bottom of his heart, as if his soul was frightened? He hurriedly encouraged himself. This was only a small fry in the first layer of the gushing spring tier, although his battle prowess was somewhat nature-defying, but no matter what, it was impossible for it to reach all the way over the spiritual ocean tier threshold. Or else, wouldn't the martial arts tiers be just for looks? Daring to kill Winter Moon Sect's disciples, you're seeking your own death, he bellowed, initiating an attack. Those who murder will also be murdered by others. How can you guys be the exception? Ling Han threw another explosive kick. Pu, the kick undoubtedly broke through Zhong Yuan's defense, landing fiercely on his face. Zhong Yuan instantly staggered backwards, but in a few steps, his head instantly exploded. The headless body swayed for a while, finally falling loudly onto the ground. Qi Yongyi and the others were already stupefied. Zhong Yuan and the other 6 killed from 100 till there were only 20 left, but once Ling Han attacked, he annihilated the 7 in a clean sweep. Just how great was the difference between the two parties? Ling. Master Ling? Zhao Huan asked tentatively. Ling Han glared at him and said, "What, Master Ling, where's my yellow dragon fruit? You guys couldn't possibly be thinking of swallowing up my share, right?" Zhao Huan hurriedly took out the yellow dragon fruit, handing over the entire stalk, and said, "Please receive it, sir." Seeing that Ling Han didn't admit his identity, he didn't dare to acknowledge him carelessly. He could only address him respectfully. Ling Han took away half the yellow dragon fruits. With his contributions, even taking away 90% was reasonable. Moreover, he just saved these people and his martial arts abilities were laid bare, so even if he took all of them, Qi Yongyi and the others would only be able to nod. Meeting acquaintances, Ling Han naturally wouldn't take all the gains. Leaving them half, he said, "I'm taking half. You guys don't have any objections, right?" "No." They hurriedly shook their heads like rattle drums. Ling Han left half the yellow dragon fruits, the rest he stored inside the black tower. He was about to leave to charge towards the spiritual ocean tier, but frowned, turning to look to the left side. Xiao, 2 figures appeared almost at one step after the other. They were precisely Ao Jiancheng and the purple-clothed youngster. Interesting. Ao Jiancheng had both hands behind his back. His gaze swept past Zhao Huan, who hadn't stored the yellow dragon fruit, as he said, "It's actually the yellow dragon fruit, no wonder it triggered a battle. Honestly, even I'm a bit moved." "What?" "Senior brother Jiancheng, this is our sect's disciple." The purple-clothed youngster looked at the ground for a while, his gaze locked onto a sleevate had traces of blood on it, but a moon design could still be seen underneath. Ao Jiancheng immediately revealed killing intent, and said threateningly, "You guys have such great nerve, daring to slaughter our sect's disciple. They coveted our things and wanted to kill and rob us, so were we supposed to stretch our necks and await death?" Zhao Huan said, unwilling to give in. In the Rain Country, he was the prodigy of one of the 8 large noble families, but here he suffered threats on his life repeatedly. It was a truly great contrast. "The people are already dead, and you guys can say whatever you want," the purple-clothed youngster said coldly. "I can say that you guys killed and robbed this sect's disciple, yet still tried to put the blame on them. Put down the yellow dragon fruit and take your own life," he said haughtily. Qi Yongyi and the others were angered half to death. Could they be more unreasonable? When all is said, you guys simply set your eyes on the yellow dragon fruit. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "You guys go first, leave this to me." "You." Qi Yongyi and the others hesitated. "You guys still don't believe me?" Ling Han raised his eyebrows with soaring confidence. "Go." Qi Yongyi and the others originally suspected that he was Ling Han, and now they no longer doubted it, turning one after another to leave. Staying here, they would not only be unable to help Ling Han, but instead become a hindrance. "You talk quite big." The purple-yellowed youngster laughed grimly. A mere small fry at the first layer of the gushing spring tier dared to speak of blocking them? Where did he get such courage? He immediately leapt out, wanting to block Qi Yongyi and the others. Ling Han also moved, unleashing a metal sword. With a shua, sword Qi flew out. The purple-clothed youngster was forced to stop and reached to wipe the wound on his cheek slit open by sword Qi. He couldn't help but be infuriated, and said, "Damn it, You dare hurt me. So what? Ling Han said indifferently. Die. The purple-clothed youngster dove out again, but this time, his target was Ling Han. As he stretched his arms and legs, martial intent flowed. His battle prowess was extremely shocking, at least 10 stars. Possessing battle prowess that surpassed one's tier by 3 stars in the spiritual ocean tier was very remarkable. Ling Han didn't dare to be careless. Ding, 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 the long sword danced rapidly, sword chi surged through the sky, and Four Seasons sword technique followed his will smoothly as he battled fiercely with the purple-clothed youngster. Chapter 331, Preparing to Break Through. Chapter 331, Preparing to Break Through. Reverie _ Ling Han was very freakish, but the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier was a shortcoming after all. His battle prowess could rival 9 stars in the spiritual ocean tier, but encountering the 10-starred purple-clothed youngster, he was still the side weaker by a level. Within a few moves, he was at a disadvantage, only guarding. However, this still stupefied Gen Ao Cheng and the purple-clothed youngster. Since when could first layer of the gushing spring tiers be this ferocious? In Gen Ao Cheng's eyes, killing intent was burning. If such a freak raised his cultivation to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, wouldn't he be able to instantly kill him? No, such a prodigy had to be quickly eradicated. He liked to battle prodigies because the feeling of crushing prodigies was extremely pleasant, definitely not because he could lose. The purple-clothed youngster roared repeatedly, one move more vicious than the previous, but Ling Han's battle prowess was only weaker than him by 1 star. How could he possibly take Ling Han down by exerting a bit more strength? Besides, Ling Han still had too many trump cards that he hadn't revealed. If possible, Ling Han truly wanted to slaughter Ao Jian Cheng. He should be one of Ao Feng's cherished children, and killing him would definitely make Ao Feng feel distressed for a while. However, Ling Han felt that a mental spirit always followed Ao Jian Cheng. That formidable winter moon sex cultivator was paying close attention to Ao Jian Cheng at every moment, and the instant Ling Han unleashed the demon birth sword, it would definitely draw that person over. Ling Han shook his head. He could only contend relying on his own strength. I underestimated you. The purple-clothed youngster stopped, but did not to stop the battle. He took out a sword behind his back that gleamed like autumn water. On the blade were lines of fabric patterns, totaling 9, it was a spirit tool. Resuscitate. He shouted lightly. Wung, 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 the lines of fabric on the blade were activated one by one, glowing. However, only 8 were lit up, the 9th line of fabric refusing to work. Making me use long brow sword, you can feel proud even when you die. The purple-clothed youngster smiled with air of arrogance, leaping out with his sword and slashing towards Ling Han. Who? The spirit tool split apart the air and 4 flashes of sword chi danced all together, extremely scary. Ling Han frowned momentarily, then just turned to run without saying another word. If he wanted to beat the purple-clothed youngster, he had to use the demon birth sword and the mysterious 3000. However, once the demon birth sword was used, under the sensitivity of the chi, the divine sense on Ao Jian Cheng would definitely realize. That couldn't happen. Once he charged into the spiritual ocean tier, his strength would have a shocking surge. Why was it necessary to fight desperately here? You want to run? The purple-clothed youngster snorted, hurriedly breaking into pursuit. Ao Jian Cheng displayed his movement technique and followed behind. Ling Han was too freakish. If such a prodigy wasn't quickly eliminated, it simply would make him unable to rest or eat in peace. However, who would be able to catch up to Ling Han, who used Shadow Wind movement technique once he activated it? Who knew was one, but for the spiritual ocean tier practitioners, one had to be naturally gifted with movement techniques or have related bloodline abilities. Otherwise, if they said they wanted to catch up to Ling Han who used the Shadow Wind movement technique, they didn't really mean it. However, after running for a few minutes, the difference between the two was pulled apart by a whole lot. Ao Jian Cheng took over the purple-clothed youngster, but the distance between them and Ling Han was still widening. After chasing for a few more minutes, Ao Jian Cheng could only stop with disappointment, for Ling Han already disappeared from his field of vision. He couldn't help but harbor resentment. He should have personally attacked earlier. dealing Ling Han a fatal blow and giving him no chance to escape. But who would have thought that he who was in the first layer of the gushing spring tier not only had nature-defying battle prowess, but also speed that could make others gape. He hadn't witnessed who knows speed, or else he'd definitely suffer a mental breakdown. Senior brother Jian Cheng, did you kill? The purple-clothed youngster arrived, and thought to ask Ao Jian Cheng whether he'd killed Ling Han, but as soon as he spoke, he knew something was off. Ao Jian Cheng's expression was quite unsightly. Ao Jian Cheng's expression was full of killing intent. He swore he definitely wouldn't let Ling Han off the next time. After Ling Han ran for a while, his figure flashed and entered the Black Tower. It was time to break through. Once he stepped into the spiritual ocean tier, he'd sweep across the desolate lands. So what if there was someone in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? He couldn't destroy them without using the demon birth sword. The nine-eyed beast wolf was still alive, but heavily injured. It woke up and immediately bared its teeth, roaring angrily and revealing its viciousness. Still vicious. Ling Han hurled a slap and the nine-eyed beast wolf was instantly shocked to death. He waved his hand, and the beast wolf's blood was completely extracted, adhering to his body. Several drops of blood were actually silver, as if mercury condensed into a ball. This was nine-eyed beast wolf's blood essence, and the sign of a king. There were only a few drops. Don't be bitter about the small amount. Only after reaching the shattering void tier would one's blood turn fully silver, and flinging one drop of it could kill someone in the flower blossom tier. Ling Han absorbed the essence, turning it into vigor that nourished his body. The blood was drying up at a rapid pace, turning into a scab stuck on his skin. The color of it was extremely light as the essence within had all been absorbed. Ling Han felt like his body was going to burst. Absorbing the blood essence of a beast king at the spiritual ocean tier was greatly beneficial to him. However, this wasn't enough. Ling Han waved his hand again. The nine-eyed beast wolf instantly broke into parts, each bone separated, fluttering midair. One drop of white bone marrow immediately emerged from the bone. Blood and bone marrow were the nine-eyed beast wolf's true essence. Normally, the bones needed to be continuously boiled and simmered for at least a day and a night before the bone marrow could become soup. However, inside the Black Tower, there was no need for such trouble. Ling Han only had to raise his hand to do it. He opened his mouth. Shio, shio, shio. The bone marrow's essence instantly flew into his mouth and was swallowed by him. Wang, the 5 elements chaos lotus vibrated slightly as origin power flowed violently inside, sending the bone marrow's essence to every corner of his body and strengthening his bones and muscles. More spirit medicine. Ling Han waved his hand. Stalk after stalk of spirit medicine was pulled from the ground, lining up in front of him. He chose some spirit medicine that strengthened his physique and compacted his origin from the spirit medicines he harvested at the Devil Sky Mystery Realm and the Winter Moon Sect's medicinal garden. He pressed with his right hand and the liquid medicinal essence was instantly extracted. Ling Han opened his mouth and swallowed like a whale. Hong, his entire being was like it turned into a pill furnace. Inside his body were several types of spirit medicine and the nine-eyed beast wolf's bone marrow and blood. He turned his body into a pill furnace, refining these essences and nourishing his body. He felt as if he would soon explode. It wasn't enough, it hadn't reached the limit, Ling Han thought to himself. He would break through at the instant his body reached the limit, compacting his fundamentals to an unshakable degree. Hong, 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 wave after wave of energy detonated inside Ling Han's body. His skin cracked and streams of blood poured out, but his eyes were still shining. He almost touched the door of the extreme. Pa, 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 his skin continued to crack open. Even the rock cliff body couldn't tolerate the violent energy wreaking havoc inside his body. At this moment. Chapter 332, Two Spiritual Oceans. Chapter 332, Two Spiritual Oceans. Reverie _ Hong. Inside Ling Han's body, an earth-shaking change happened. His muscles, bones, and veins were becoming stronger, breaking through the rock cliff body's limits and bringing it up a level. This wasn't the indestructible Heaven Scrolls contribution, but a breakthrough acquired from him pushing his own body. Such a great change didn't occur on his body alone, but also in his dantian. He had fused 9 nuclei long ago, and turned 9 Springs Eyes into one the most important step in breaking through to the spiritual ocean tier. His Springs Eye was surprisingly large, as if a great lake, and now it was Super Springs Eye that was expanding at the rate of a tsunami. Forming an ocean. Hong Long Long, the Springs Eye burst out a surprising amount of origin power. If Ling Han used his divine sense turned into a human figure for comparison, the Springs Eye had already become a vast body of water, so extensive that the end couldn't be seen. Hiss, this could already rival the spiritual ocean in his previous life when he was at the peak of the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but now he just broke through and the spiritual ocean was still expanding at a fast pace, far from reaching the early stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Truly astounding. This process for Ling Han was following a beaten path. Tidal wave after tidal wave, the spiritual spring turned into an ocean, massive and boundless. After whole 3 hours, the spiritual ocean's expansion finally stopped. However, as Ling Han thought he'd smoothly advanced, a tide suddenly rose and the spiritual ocean transformed again, beginning to split. What's this situation? At Gushing Spring Tier, he only had 1 supersized Spring's Eye, but others had 9. And now, others fused 9 springs into one, turning into one spiritual ocean. Could he be the opposite, possessing 9 spiritual oceans? Fortunately, his spiritual ocean only split into 2, and no longer continued to divide. 2 spiritual oceans, one on top, and the other on the bottom, as if heaven and earth. Moreover, one spiritual ocean swirled clockwise, while the other rotated counterclockwise, like the yin-yang fish in the diagram of cosmological scheme. Ling Han was driven mad. After crossing into the element-gathering tier in this lifetime, everything was different. Other people's origin nucleus was singular, but he had 5 small origin nuclei combined. Other people's 9 Springs Eye, while he had 1. Other people had 1 spiritual ocean, yet he had 2. Holy crap! However, the real change probably happened when he was at the 9th layer of the element-gathering tier when he fused 9 origin nuclei, which now emerged as an intrinsic change. After all, having small origin nuclei, it could be done as long as one had multi-element spirit base. 9 nuclei fused into one. This was probably unprecedented, at least according to what Ling Han knew in 2 lifetimes. Another like this had yet to appear in the world, so his path of cultivation that followed might bring him many surprises. Very soon, the 2 spiritual oceans finished expanding, completely stabilizing, which meant that he truly crossed into the spiritual ocean tier. Ling Han was shocked, because his spiritual ocean now was 10 times as big as the one in his previous life. With a thought, the spiritual ocean raised in a wave as origin power swept past, surging violently. He casually threw a punch, sensing the power within. He nodded. His power could now rival the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. This was extremely scary. Just stepping into the spiritual ocean tier, his power could rival the late-stage spiritual ocean tier warriors, so when he reached the peak stage of the spiritual ocean tier, would it be possible for him to battle those in the spiritual pedestal tier? Relying on his own power, and not with the help of the demon birth sword. This was very much possible, even though the higher the tier in martial arts, the larger each step, he compacted his foundation too sturdily, allowing him to possess extraordinary tier-surpassing battle abilities. This time, fighting Ao Jian Cheng again, I can beat him barehanded till he calls his ancestors. Ling Han smiled faintly. However, I still don't want to expose my identity. I have to infiltrate the Winter Moon sect to find out Mother's whereabouts, so it's best not to use a sword. Fist techniques. Palm techniques. Or, leg techniques. Ah, got one. It's Na Lan 2's War Elephant Fist, the one I requested when he asked me to refine pills. It's said to be quite a special black-grade technique, which Gushing Spring tier martial artists can't cultivate as they're 1 tier too low to manifest martial intent. It'd be nice if this fist technique is like the mysterious 3000. However, Na2 Lan didn't have a stinky face as if his parents had died like the one-sword emperor had when he handed it over. I guess I'll be disappointed. Ling Han turned over the War Elephant Fist inside his consciousness, as he said, "Small tower, can the 2nd layer be opened now?" The small tower's figure surfaced. It paused slightly, seeming to attempt it, and then it immediately swayed left to right as if it was shaking its head. "No, you're not strong enough right now. Hey, 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 I am now in the spiritual ocean tier, and counting upwards, the spiritual pedestal, the flower blossom, the spiritual infant, the deity transformation, the heaven, and the shattering void tiers, a total of 6 more steps left. Even if I could open 1 layer every time I advanced, then when I become God, I can still only open up the 8th layer, meaning, God realm also has level differences," Ling Han inferred. This was counting closely. If, by any chance, he needed 2 or 3 tiers before he could open a layer of the Black Tower, then just how many stages was God tier divided into? Small Tower was silent. Its intellect was limited, or maybe it was because it was damaged too heavily, affecting its intelligence. At any rate, it was unable to respond to questions out of its range. Ling Han sighed. It made sense. Black Tower was undoubtedly a product of the God realm, and its original owner definitely died, while the tool's spirit was annihilated as well, rebirthing as another one. This explained that even gods were divided into the weak, and the strong dividing them into levels would naturally be normal. Interesting, interesting. So following this line of thought, alchemy doesn't end at the heaven tier? Ling Han revealed a smile. He was enthralled by alchemy in his previous life, and this life he focused on martial arts, but that didn't mean he no longer had interest in alchemy. He had already gone to the extremes in alchemy and could no longer advance any further. But in reality, alchemy was the same as martial arts. God tier was not the end. Perhaps it was close, but definitely not the end. He could explore alchemy again. This made Ling Han very happy, an excitement which he hadn't felt in a long time. Whatever, first he'd practice that fist technique. There wasn't much time. Inside the space of the Black Tower, he could use his abilities fully, grasping the slightest changes. This was clearly extremely helpful in practicing techniques. However, he wasn't in too much of a rush, either. Wanting to enter the top 100 in the exam, it wasn't that the more people he defeated, the better it was enough to defeat those who had enough gains. If you beat 10,000 people, you can only gain 10,000 tokens, but if you beat one person who has defeated 10,000 opponents, then you can reap 10,001 tokens. So, Winter Moon Sect's disciples actually weren't at all disadvantaged joining the exam on the 3rd day. Ling Han cultivated for an entire day, and after grasping the basics of the War Elephant Fist, he left the Black Tower. Now, it was time for him to fully display his capabilities. However, he disguised himself again because Qi Yongyi and the others should have seen through the earlier identity, knowing his identity actually wasn't such a good thing for them. He shuttled through the mountains, gaining quite a lot. At nighttime, he raised a bonfire, grilling 9-eyed beast wolf's meat. Millimeter, smells good. Really does smell good. A bunch of people rushed out from the forest. There were at least 200 people. Yo, Brother Zhao, it's a guy all on his own. These people looked at Ling Han as if Ling Han was a course on their table. Chapter 333, The War Elephant Fist. Chapter 333, The War Elephant Fist. Reverie _ Before the exam started, many wealthy individuals were acquiring tokens and underlings all around. Ling Han had also been harassed. While most people were all right after being rejected, they simply continued to search for the next person, since there were so many people here anyways. However, there were always those who thought that the world should circle around them. After being rejected, they'd show a scowl, or even threaten to kill and whatnot. This youngster was one of those people. His name was Zhao Ri. However, Ling Han disguised multiple times, so Zhao Ri naturally couldn't recognize Ling Han. Zhao Ri sniffed hard with his nose and set his eyes on the meat Ling Han was grilling, revealing a hungry look. Brother Zhao, this seems to be extremely high-quality beast meat, an underling said to Zhao Ri. Go get it for me, Zhao Ri said. High-level beast meat was greatly tonic, and for martial artists, it wasn't inferior to medicinal pills. One underling immediately came over and yelled at Ling Han, damn brat, hand over the token, and you can get loss. Ling Han frowned and said, if you don't want to die, get loss. Haha, can't you see we have so many people? The underling laughed grimly. Their collective strength was certainly not weak. They not only could overwhelm foes with numbers, but also had several late-stage gushing spring tear experts. Running rampant on their path gave them a burst of confidence. "Hurry, this young master is hungry," Zhao Ri urged from behind. "Mph, you're going to regret refusing me." The underling immediately threw a kick at Ling Han with vicious force. This was not just kicking Ling Han, acidate would kick his brains out. This exam didn't forbid them from killing, which seemed to have released many people's viciousness. Ling Han's gaze turned cold. Slashing by with a finger, a chilling sword chi came out of thin air, and fresh blood spattered. That person's leg was severed, flying in an arc and landing on the ground in front of Zhao Ri with a splat. Ah! At this moment the underling realized what had happened. After being startled, he screamed tragically as tears and snot muddled his face. Forgetting to bind up the wound, the bleeding alone might kill. Impudence! How dare you! Courting death! 100 people shouted angrily all together. Was there still order if a person on his own dared to act violently in front of them? Seems like you have some skill. Zhao Ri laughed coldly. Brother Zhong, Brother Li, and Brother Ma, which one of you is willing to take down this brat? He said to 3 youngsters with unordinary bearings. These 3 people were all in the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier, and the haughtiness on their faces was soaring through the sky. In reality, descendants of large families aside, reaching the 9th layer of the gushing spring tiers under 30 in the North region was certainly very impressive, and could be called the finest. After all, there were only so many prodigies that crossed into the spiritual ocean tier because of a fortuitous encounter, either eating a heavenly spirit fruit or taking a spirit pill passed down from ancient times. The youngster surnamed Zhong took large strides over with a smile and said, "Leave a nobody like this to me. It'll save Brother Li and Brother Ma from dirtying your hands." The other 2 laughed reservedly. The 3's strength was more or less the same, so they were all unconvinced about each other. Each one wanted to earn the first place, so they would take turns to display their abilities when encountering situations like this. "Brat, no need to tell me your name, and no need to tell me who's your backer. I don't care. Meeting me here is your greatest misfortune, so just blame your bad fate," the youngster surnamed Zhong said arrogantly, throwing a punch towards Ling Han. In order to display his abilities in front of Li and Ma, this punch was unleashed with all his might to kill Ling Han in a clean sweep. Whoever could take care of their opponent the fastest would obviously be stronger. Ling Han shook his head. Did these youngsters truly think they were the kings of the world, doing whatever they wanted? He snorted and threw a punch as well. War Elephant Fist activated, Wang, vein-like lines unfolded, and from inside came a light silver dragon elephant that emitted a great presence, trampling towards the youngster surnamed Zhong. Pu. Everyone spurted out at the same time. Martial intent, that was martial intent. Martial intent manifested meant, the spiritual ocean tier. T. Everyone's eyes suddenly popped out. Who would have thought an unprepossessing, 18 to 19-year-old youngster was actually a spiritual ocean tier expert? Now they were done for, having kicked an iron plate. Peng. The dragon elephant ran over and the youngster surnamed Zhong was no more, trampled into a pile of mud. Ling Han was amazed as it was his first time using the war elephant Feesda hadn't known of its power. The result was, it crushed an opponent in the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier into crumbs. Moreover, he only cultivated this fist technique for a day, and didn't truly grasp its essence. A true war elephant fist fired out should be golden, and not light silver. However, cultivating it for a day's time to this degree was not bad, either. Ling Han laughed. He wasn't overly critical of himself, he was a genius, but not a nature-defying genius. It was just that his luck was relatively better. Sir. Zhao Ri said whilst trembling. The spiritual ocean tier warriors absolutely crushed the gushing spring tier 17. If they had had 100 people here, it would not at all have been enough, not to mention there were only a dozen of them in the gushing spring tier. Still want to eat meat? Ling Han laughed gently, but seeing him crush the youngster surnamed Zhong into meat paste with a single punch, who would still feel Ling Han gentle and amiable? The masses shook their heads all together, moving very orderly. Ling Han nodded, and said, "Hand over your tokens, everyone can get lost except for Zhao Ri." Everyone was as if they'd been granted amnesty. They hurriedly took out their tokens, placed them on the ground, and turned on their heels. If they lost the token, they could still rob more, but if their lives were gone, where would they find that? Zhao Ri clenched his teeth, suddenly breaking into a run. He didn't want to wait helplessly for death. As he turned around and stepped down with his right leg, he stepped on nothing as his entire person instantly fell towards the ground. It wasn't that a hole suddenly appeared on the ground or whatnot, but because his right leg had already been severed by sword chi, so he naturally stepped on nothing. Ah, he instantly shouted tragically, struggling to prop his body up. As he sought help from his underlings, none looked twice, simply walking away rapidly with their heads down and making him instantly feel an intense chill. Don't kill me, I'm a clansman of the Zhao family. My father is Zhao Ri Cheng, a formidable spiritual pedestal tier cultivator, and if he knew you killed me, he would definitely find you and kill you. Zhao Ri could only turn his head to threaten Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "All right, I've remembered." He waved his hand and Zhao Ri's head was cut off and spun a few circles on the ground, his eyes still filled with regret. My sword intent is too strong now. Clearly, when I throw a punch or a palm, it turns into sword chi. This way, even if I use war elephant fist, people would still guess that I actually use a sword. I need to adjust a bit, he muttered to himself. As for trash like Zhao Ri, he wouldn't care even if he killed 10,000 like him. He didn't know how many arrogant second generations like this he killed in his previous life. Chapter 334, Delivering Tokens. Chapter 334, Delivering Tokens. Reverie _ Ling Han walked through the mountains, walking along a narrow mountain path towards the Fallen Goose Valley. On the way, he encountered many battles, but he obviously quelled them easily with his strength. If his opponent showed killing intent, he wouldn't hesitate to kill them, but if the other party simply wanted to rob, then he would give them a way out. After all, contending over tokens was the rule of the game, and not personal grievance. Battle after battle, Ling Han finally suppressed his sword chi, forming fist chi once again. Comprehension of a rule led to comprehension of all rules. The world martial arts was originally from one source. Ling Han comprehended by analogy, thinking, I encountered a bottleneck in my cultivation of sword chi. From the fifth flash, it has been no longer smooth. In reality, the fifth one appeared because father was captured and I broke through the shackles under fury. The sixth one was formed through a discussion of sword path with teacher Mo that led to enlightenment. The seventh one was also due to an explosion of emotions. But, I can't always be accompanied by such overwhelming emotions, and I don't want to improve my sword intent through great sorrow since I can't always be so lucky that the people by my side are only ever injured and never die. Since I've encountered a bottleneck with cultivating sword chi, it wouldn't hurt to try other arts and skills. Training the fist technique for such a short time, I can indistinctly feel some sort of resonance with the sword path. Perhaps improving war elephant fist to the highest tier can let me form the eighth flash of sword chi. On the third day, Winter Moon Sect's disciples officially joined the exam. Not many, only 300 or so, but these people were all around 25 years old, and the weakest was in the Gushing Spring tier. This was very shocking, disrupting the exam again. Ling Han never met a rival and the tokens he gained reached 10,000, yet the opponents he defeated were but 700 or so. As expected, robbing the right people brought more profits. This already guaranteed his entry into the top 100. Ling Han had no ambition to take the first place because there was no meaning in it as the top 100 all could enter the second round's exam. The Fallen Goose Valley appeared. It was a natural death valley. Birds didn't fly past because there was often fiendish chi that surged upwards from the bottom that even flower blossom tier warriors feared. It was said the Winter Moon Sect once dispatched 3 spiritual infant tier cultivators to investigate, but only 2 came out and both died soon after. Ever since then, the Fallen Goose Valley became a restricted area that no one dared enter. Ling Han and other examinees naturally didn't have to enter the Fallen Goose Valley, simply gathering at the outer perimeter of the valley. After people arrived, they delivered their tokens and registered their identities. Brother, got a question, how many tokens did you get? After Ling Han walked into the safety area, a youngster 20 or so years old approached. Why should I tell you? Ling Han replied with a question. Hehe, the truth is, of the ones that are coming here now, those in the top 100 have at least 900 tokens, so if you have less, why not sell the tokens to me? If you're way over that amount, why not share some with me? The youngster said, grinning widely. Ling Han laughed and said, not interested. Hey, we can discuss the price, don't go. The youngster caught up, but Ling Han still ignored him, making him shake his head and going back to wait for those that came later. Ling Han walked towards the token delivery point. At least a dozen people struck up a conversation to buy tokens from him, but he still ignored them. When he reached the end, a tall platform was placed here, and those who returned had to walk up to deliver their tokens. Besides that, on the platform was stuck a large white paper, and on it were 100 names, each name with a number behind it. Obviously, it showed those in the top 100 and their scores. Ling Han took a glance. As expected, the last place's score was in the 900s, but this person would definitely be eliminated because there was still half a day's time before the exam was over. There were still large amounts of people that hadn't returned, and there would definitely be many whose score broke through 1000. He glanced but didn't find the names of the Zhao Huan and the other youngsters of the 9 nations of the desolate north. Perhaps they could advance into top 10,000, but getting into top 100 was too difficult unless their luck was especially good and they met pushovers all the time. Even if they didn't enter top 10,000, they still got plenty yellow dragon fruit, so this trip wasn't for nothing. He only discovered one familiar person, Sword of Justice by Ming, who now ranked second with a score of 11,008. This score might only rank 40 or 50 even lower, but as long as one had 10,000 tokens, one could enter top 100. What meaning would it have to have more? He's a smart one. Ling Han nodded. He walked up to deliver his tokens. When he waved his right hand, a large amount of tokens was piled up on the table, stunning the person responsible for counting, who would have thought that an 18 to 19-year-old youngster was actually so fierce. Ling Han intentionally disguised himself as a bit older, or else a 17-year-old face would be even more shocking. Your score is 10,086 pieces. The people responsible for counting were 4 gushing spring tier warriors, so their speed was naturally fast. And on top of the platform sat a spiritual pedestal tier practitioner, looking like he was resting with eyes closed and not caring, but with such an expert sitting there, who dared to mess around? Name, age, birthplace, and cultivation, a disciple asked, holding a book in his hands that had several names written on it. He was responsible for recording the top 100 people's scores. Although the first round of exam wasn't over, those who broke through the score of 10,000 were guaranteed to enter top 100, the only question being what their rank would ultimately be. Ling Han said, Han Lin, 19 years old, Fuyun Mountain, the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Han Lin was Ling Han backwards. A 19-year-old spiritual ocean tier cultivator was still surprising, but being older by 2 years was a lot better. Fuyun Mountain was a small mountain in the north region that Ling Han had read about previously in a geographical record. He took it in passing, and because the vast lands experienced a great calamity in the past 9,000 years, many place names were changed, he couldn't rashly throw out a place name from his previous lifetime. The 4 disciples were all surprised. Although the score of over 10,000 tokens was impressive, it might have been partly luck, but being in the spiritual ocean tier was certainly surprising. Even the expert in the spiritual pedestal tier who was resting couldn't help but open his eyes to size up Ling Han, nodding his head. He said, youngster, not bad. Quite impressive. Ling Han didn't make himself look too old, because his life force was too vigorous. If he really disguised as a 24 or 25-year-old youth, old monsters at the flower blossom tier would see through it with a single glance. If they associated him with one of the great thieves, then he would be in a pretty pickle. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, thank you, senior, for your compliment. The spiritual pedestal tier expert gave him a friendly smile, not daring to be arrogant. A 19-year-old spiritual ocean tier cultivator was truly something surprising, and in days to come, Ling Han might become a flower blossom tier, or even a spiritual infant tier cultivator. Even if he couldn't be a friend of Ling Han, he definitely couldn't fall foul of him. This is your new token, you mustn't lose it. A disciple handed over a heavy black token. On it, the 2 words Han Lin were carved. Facebook, Twitter, Google plus them. Chapter 335, The Seven Sons of Ao Family. Chapter 335, The Seven Sons of Ao Family. Reverie _ Ling Han's score now ranked 7th, which looked high for now, but when everything ended, it might drop down to 40th or 50th place. The top 10 scores were all very close, differing only by a few hundred, or even a dozen points. Clearly, these were smart people. Obtaining 10,000 tokens meant definitely entering top 100, so what did it matter whether the rank was a bit lower or a bit higher? The second round of the exam was the key, and it definitely checked one's power. They only had to give it their all on this stage. Ling Han walked onto a large rock and sat cross-legged. As his right fist trembled lightly, he envisioned the war elephant fist. Fist after fist circulated, and on his fists appeared indistinct luster of vein-like lines formed from martial intent. Being idle, he might as well train. How could he waste time? A mere small fry in the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier dares to show off here. A sharp voice sounded near Ling Han's ear. Ling Han turned his head to see a lanky man looking at him with arms crossed. The fourth layer of the spiritual ocean tier was quite an impressive cultivation for his age. After all, the spiritual pedestal tier warriors under 30 years old were still unheard of in the North region. Who do you think you are? Ling Han said sullenly. He was disguised anyways, and under the condition of not revealing his trump card, he didn't want to tolerate anything one bit, acting completely arrogant and domineering. The youngster snorted and said, "This young master is Yang Jun." Oh. Ling Han suddenly realized. Yang Jun was originally ranked 7th and just happened to be pushed down by him, now ranking 8. However, there was no point to contend for rank in the first round and he ran over so early, so he shouldn't bother about ranking at all. In the next examination, I'll beat the shit of you, Yang Jun said coldly. He certainly didn't care for this round's ranking earlier, but Ling Han was just too young, making him extremely envious. Moreover, Ling Han was only in the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and being pushed down by such a person made him feel even more uncomfortable inside. Dumbass. Ling Han sneered, paying him no more attention. Yang Jun's eyes shot out flames of fury, but he forcefully suppressed it. He simply snorted. Once the second examination began, he would definitely let Ling Han know the immensity of the world. The start of this feud was certainly baffling. Ling Han shook his head and continued to practice fist techniques. He now formed 3 flashes of fist chi, and if he broke through to form a 4th, his battle prowess would have a small but fundamental change. It was already getting dark, a little more than 4 hours before midnight. More and more people returned. Yang Chang, Sai Chi Meng, Zhao Huan, Chi Yong Yet Hos that Ling Han were familiar with or knew the names of appeared one after another. He swept a glance and saw Zhao Huan and the others with joyful expressions. Looks like they had quite a good chance of squeezing into top 10,000. Ling Han's rank dropped all the way down as expected, and the first place already surged into a high point of 20,000. It was no other than Yang Chong. However, without a moment's time, he was pushed down, and the first place became Ao Feng Hang. He ought to be one of the 7 sons of Ao family, but it was unknown which this one was. Ling Han laughed. Ao Feng had too many illegitimate children. He himself probably didn't remember them, let alone outsiders. His gaze focused. He saw a fatty in the crowd, likely 22 or 23 years old. He was very unfamiliar to him, but thanks to that round physique, Ling Han could be sure that this guy was Ma Juo Bao. His stature was quite the flaw. No matter how kick-ass the disguise pill, it still couldn't disguise him, who was like a crane standing amongst chickens. Catch him. As expected, if Ling Han could discover Ma Juo Bao, so could Winter Moon Sect's cultivators. Instantly, several spiritual pedestal tier warriors leapt out from obscure corners, snatching at Ma Juo Bao. Tanned brother, hope to see you again. Ma Juo Bao immediately broke into a run and blinked in Ling Han's direction right before leaving. The distance was large, but Ling Han was certain that Ma Juo Bao had discovered him. Strange. Ling Han was shocked, because he didn't have a special stature, and on top of the disguise, how did Ma Juo Bao recognize him? Could it be that those who thieve had a special art of distinguishing people? In spite of Ma Juo Bao being fat, His movement techniques were extremely quick. He was swimming through the crowd like a fish, and even the spiritual pedestal tier pursuers didn't know how to begin arresting him. They went further and further, and in a short moment, Ma Duo Bao had already ran into the dense forest. Ling Han wasn't worried about that guy. His body was full of treasures, and even he couldn't see through his strength. Ma Duo Bao had enough ability to keep himself alive. After Hu Niu and Yang Tianzhao, there was yet another beast. Rong Huan Xian had already become an old monster that shouldn't be counted. The rankings continued to renew. More and more of the top 10 were led by those surnamed Ao, and without mentioning, they were definitely the 7 sons of Ao family. This certainly explained the 7 people's strengths that were quite out of the ordinary, so many of them reached top 10 and none of them was 30 years old. From this point, Ao Feng's talent should also be exceptional, or else he couldn't possibly have fathered so many prodigies. It was no wonder the Yu family wanted to arrange a marriage with Ao family back then. When midnight came, the first round's exam ended. Even if there were people who hadn't returned, their score wouldn't be counted. Ling Han's ranking dropped into the 40s, ranking 42nd, while first place was Ao Xinglai, who attained a shocking score of 30,000. Top 100, those who received the black metal token, follow me, a disciple said. Top 10,000, still tallying, everyone be patient, another disciple said. Ling Han got up and left the Falling Goose Valley, following everyone to a mountaintop called Rising Sword Peak. Yulong Mountains were too large, so even with over 20,000 people in the Winter Moon sect, only 7 mountaintops were occupied. In terms of surface area, it was only 1,000th. However, these 7 mountaintops were abundant with spiritual qi, a holy ground for cultivation. Comparatively, Rising Sword Peak's spiritual qi quality ranked last. This was where the lowest level disciples lived. Ling Han and the others had not officially joined the Winter Moon sect, so they could only live here temporarily. Amongst the top 100, Winter Moon sect's disciples took 30 spots, so 2 factions were naturally formed. The first night, a fight almost broke out, but fortunately, with the spiritual pedestal tier warriors keeping watch, nothing big was stirred up in the end. Ling Han looked around. The 7 sons of Ao family all reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, quite out of the ordinary. Besides the 7, there were a few that showed extraordinary talent, not in the least inferior to that of the 7 sons of Ao family. However, who was stronger would have to be decided in tomorrow's examination. Perhaps, Winter Moon sect's disciples were all unconvinced with each other, wanting to come out as the top 3 amongst themselves. This night was extremely unquiet, silent conflict was turbulent, but the second day, the sun still rose as usual. Ling Han entered the Black Tower at midnight and refined the yellow dragon fruit into returned spirit fruit 1. He might as well not waste time. A spiritual pedestal tier expert appeared before long, urging everyone to wake up. Without letting them eat breakfast, he brought them to a large platform on the mountainside. White or paved these tiles here, hardness was one of its distinguishing features. Even a spiritual pedestal tier warrior's full power attack wouldn't easily break them. It was most suitable for making a battleground. The true ranking battle was about to begin. Chapter 336, Re-examination. Chapter 336, Re-examination. Reverie _ Time's limited, and you will all be this sect's disciples hereafter with many chances to spar, so today's re-examination will be carried out quickly, the spiritual pedestal tier cultivator spoke. He pointed at the plaza and continued, yesterday's 91st to 100 step forward, and line up on the field. Immediately, 10 people stepped forward and stood separately on the field. 81st to 90 step forward, he said again, waiting for 10 people to step forward, and continued, you guys can pick one to challenge, the victor stays, and the loser gets eliminated. The battles begin now, but whether or not the battle ends, the second round of battles starts an hour later, and if the 2 people are still battling on the field, then both will be eliminated. Start. With that said, at least 5 people already started to fighting. Rest was counted in the time of battle, with a total of 1 hour's time, so the faster one's opponent was taken care of, the more time one had to rest. Moreover, the order in which people took the field was a reward for those who scored well yesterday. The top 10 could battle at their best in the final round. Of course, a true expert would not care about that at all, having the confidence to easily overcome their opponents. The battle soon became heated. If they lost in this round, they would be eliminated, so everyone fought with all their might. Of course, if they didn't need to use their trump cards, they wouldn't. After all, if they wanted to advance into top 10, there were still many tough battles ahead. 10 minutes later, the first battle was over, and another pair tangled for an hour without a victor. Well, the two were both eliminated. The 71st place to the 80th place took the field, and the second round of battle started. A lucky fellow won without fighting, and could welcome the third round of battles in his peak form. Round after round, each one an hour. This speed was very fast, and after 4 hours, it was Ling Han's turn. Huh! Ling Han revealed an astounded expression, because his opponent was Zhao Hongcheng. Before the exam, he was the one who mocked Qi Yongyi and others as narrow-minded, and also looked down completely on Ling Han. What a coincidence that Ling Han actually bumped into him. Do you forfeit or should I beat you till you concede? Zhao Hongcheng said arrogantly. Ling Han smiled and said, we're both in the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier, where do you get your confidence from? Haha, from this. Zhao Hongcheng brandished his sword. It was an oddly shaped sword, with the tip split like a snake's tongue and an extremely thin fuller. 7 vein-like lines could be seen on top of it. Silver Serpent Sword, 4th tier spirit tool. Under full activation, it can rival the battle prowess of one in the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. He circulated his spiritual chi and began to activate the martial intent of the spirit tool. Instantly, the vein-like lines shone and the spirit tool emitted a strong presence. In a sense, the spirit tool was equivalent to a cultivator of the same tier, and Zhao Hongcheng himself was a spiritual ocean tier warrior, which was enough to fully activate the Silver Serpent Sword's powers. Therefore, it was now equivalent to 2 spiritual ocean tier opponents attacking Ling Han together. Moreover, Silver Serpent Sword's power was comparable to an opponent in the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, so no wonder Zhao Hongcheng would be full of confidence. One in the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and one in the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. That meant there would be some chances of winning even if encountering an opponent in the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Zhao Hongcheng never used the Silver Serpent Sword in the previous exam in order to surprise people at the next examination. However, there was no rule in the tournament that one couldn't use spirit tools, so even if he won relying on the Silver Serpent Sword, at most people would only look down on him for not winning with his own skills. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, should I reveal a sense of fear to coordinate with you? Don't need to pretend, you're certainly feeling scared. Zhao Hongcheng charged out with his sword. Being at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier while fully activating a 5th layer spiritual ocean tier spirit tool was a great burden for him, so he hoped to take care of Ling Han as soon as possible, obtaining some time to recover. Ling Han formed a fist and moved. Hong, martial intent circulated, and vein-like lines spread out as a silver-colored dragon elephant stepped through the air, charging at Zhao Hongcheng. Peng! In a fierce clash, Zhao Hongcheng backed up repeatedly, his expression extremely pale. The power in that attack was too heavy, shaking his internal organs such that he felt it extremely unbearable, almost spitting out blood. Huh! What? Yikes! Seeing this scene, those who were originally absent-minded all revealed astounded expressions. That this punch pushed back Zhao Hongcheng wasn't a big deal as he was at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier after all, but he held a spirit tool that was fully activated now. That was weird. His battle prowess should be 6 stars. Many people evaluated. This was very surprising. A 1st layer spiritual ocean tier youth that had 6 stars battle prowess, that was very hard to believe. He should be wearing some sort of spirit tool that's already activated, otherwise, hehe, battle prowess surpassing 5 stars? Even amongst us not many can do it, right? Someone immediately thought of a reasonable explanation. Vambraces or leggings could be worn underneath clothes, so it would be very hard to discover them even when they were activated. There are still a few people with battle prowess surpassing 5 stars, but only Aoda has 6 stars. Someone's gaze moved towards a 22 to 23-year-old youngster. This person was Aoda, whose real name was Ao Xinglai. The 7 sons of Ao family's ranking was not based on age, but on ability. Ao Xinglai was Ao Feng's most remarkable son, with cultivation in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. It was said that he already had 1 foot in the spiritual pedestal tier, and such talent could be called a prodigy even in the middle state off course, not top-notch. At least in the North region, there were already spiritual pedestal tier prodigies in this age segment. Ao Xinglai slightly raised the corner of his lips. He certainly didn't believe that Ling Han possessed battle prowess surpassing 5 stars, and even if it was so, it couldn't rival his. His battle prowess fully unleashed could actually surpass 7 stars. His confidence not only came from being the head of the 7 sons of Ao family and the Winter Moon sect's #1 genius, but also from being North region's #1 prodigy. One day, he would enter the middle state and sweep across the prodigies there, casting down his legendary reputation that would go down in the annals of history. I don't believe. Zhao Hongcheng straightened his sword, charging right back. I'm in the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier and you too, we both have spirit tools as well. Could I be weaker than you? He brandished the long sword and 4 flashes of sword chi were shot out. 4 flashes of sword chi, not bad, not bad, he's got talent on the sword path. Lin Han fired a punch, also with 4 flashes of fist chi circulating, forming 4 golden fists that traveled towards Zhao Hongcheng. Peng, 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 sword chi and fist chi collided, annihilating one another. Ah! Zhao Hongcheng bellowed, brandishing his sword continuously. They were both in the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier, so even with a spirit tool in hand, their energy consumption was very great. He only had to last a little longer than Ling Han to win. Ling Han's Dantian space was 100 times larger than a normal spiritual ocean tier warrior's, and his spiritual ocean was also 10 times larger. Moreover, he had 2 that formed yin and yang, almost returning to the universe's origins. Thus, he didn't hurry and just used his opponent to practice the war elephant fist. Chapter 337, Polishing the Fist Technique. Chapter 337, Polishing the Fist Technique. Reverie _ Inside Ling Han's body were 2 spiritual oceans, one on the bottom as earth, and one on top as heaven, symbolizing the yin and yang. When he allocated his origin power, he could choose one of the 2 spiritual oceans, but if necessary, the 2 large spiritual oceans could both circulate at the same time. One yin and one yang. Although opposites, it could give terrifying bursts of spiritual power, making his power skyrocket to the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Against a nobody like Zhao Hongcheng, he naturally didn't have to use his full strength. The Earth spiritual ocean circulating was enough of a power support. He mainly experienced the subtle changes in the war elephant fist, improving upon his fist path. All arts in the world aimed for the same end, so if he could form 7 flashes of sword chi, then it also meant he could reach 7 flashes of fist chi. However, there had to be a process, and he was reducing that process now by battling Zhao Hongcheng. Die, die, die. Zhao Hongcheng was as if he were in frenzy. Seeing that it was almost the time limit of an hour yet he was still tangling with Ling Han, he thought he and Ling Han would both be eliminated. This enraged him beyond control as he felt that Ling Han was extremely detestable. Ling Han obviously couldn't beat him, but why must he continue to tangle with him? Die your sister. Ling Han yelled out explosively as he threw a punch fiercely. 4 flashes of fist chi set out, turning into 4 silver fists, which evolved into 4 dragon elephants that charged at Zhao Hongcheng. What? Everyone cried out, was this a breakthrough during the battle? If it were true, then this guy was too scary. One who could turn pressure into motivation during battle to break through one's own limits was definitely a genius amongst geniuses. Impossible, this guy probably formed 4 flashes of fist chi long ago but avoided using it, and now unleashed it explosively to intentionally scare people. He wants to make people think he broke through during battle to attract the sect's attention. What a truly deep scheme. Truly too naive. They all shook their heads. They were all conceited themselves, but such a breakthrough was impossible even for them, so they subconsciously thought it was fake. Otherwise, wouldn't it be saying that they were inferior? However, a few people were in deep thought, what if this was real? Fortunately, there were only 4 flashes of fist chi, just entering the accomplished level and not yet qualified to be called a king. Hong. 4 flashes of fist chi against 3 flashes were like a 4th layer's suppression against a 3rd layer. There was still a great difference between the one who was at the middle stage and the one who was at the early stage, so, this punch rolled over, sending Zhao Hongcheng flying along with his sword. At this moment, it was roughly about an hour since the fight began. The 10 who ranked 30 or so had their sight on Ling Han. This guy just experienced a great neck-and-neck battle and had absolutely no time to recover, so if they could challenge Ling Han, then it would be equivalent to fighting a pushover. Zhao Hongcheng lay on the ground, his face full of disbelief. He actually encountered an opponent that broke through during the battle. The top 30, step forward, the spiritual pedestal tier cultivator said. Begin the next round. Shua, a lithe and graceful girl, was the fastest to arrive before Ling Han. She smiled enchantingly at the surrounding people as she said, "This little sister thanks every fellow brother for giving way." This was a very beautiful girl, and on top of her alluring figure, people involuntarily looked twice. When she leapt out, she intentionally swung her hips and stuck her chest out and fully displayed her physique, making the other 9 instinctively look toward her. That was how she ended up getting Ling Han, the pushover. The other 9 cried out bad luck inwardly. Why did they harbor lust? Just admit defeat. The girl attacked Ling Han. She was stronger than Zhao Hongcheng, at the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean tier. However, if she was only so good, then she naturally wouldn't rival Ling Han, who possessed battle prowess of 6 stars. Since she dared to challenge Ling Han, she obviously had something to rely on. As she attacked, she unleashed an exquisite pagoda embodied by jade. Flashes of vein-like lines shined, forming a visible wave that vibrated towards Ling Han. Ling Han immediately felt small tower emit a thought of extreme disgust. This thought obviously wasn't directed at him but the exquisite pagoda. Heh, this spirit tool is quite interesting. Can't stand other tower-shaped spirit tools. Wang, the wave was like a tidal wave, extremely tempestuous. Ling Han threw out a blank punch and formed a vein-like line that expanded rapidly, as if a shield protecting him. The wave the exquisite pagoda emitted passed by, sending layers of ripples as the vein-like lines immediately showed several cracks. When the shield was shattered, the exquisite pagoda's attack also ended. The girl couldn't help but be surprised that power contained in Ling Han's punch was so accurately measured, not a single bit enough or 2 mooches if he'd fought her before. However, at this moment, it wasn't time for her to be shocked. She immediately shook the tower lightly, releasing a wave and drawing her sword to attack as she leapt outwards. Xiao, 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 4 flashes of sword chi spread out, its power overwhelming. As expected, she could come this far not because of the spirit tool's power, but because she personally possessed amazing strength. Ling Han received her attack, continuing to use his opponent to practice war elephant fist. Some people took notice of Ling Han and couldn't help but reveal shocked expressions. The girl's strength was obviously above Zhao Hongcheng's, but Ling Han was still able to fight back and forth without falling at a disadvantage. This meant that Ling Han held back his strength. Since that was so, could it possibly be that Ling Han wasn't using his full strength right now? If he can advance into the next round, I'll pick him as my opponent, a man with an imposing appearance said. His cultivation of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier was quite out of the ordinary. Haha, senior brother Yu's actually harboring the urge to battle a small fry in the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier? Someone laughed, but immediately revealed an expression of doubt. Senior brother Yu, aren't you thinking too highly of him? Senior brother Yu revealed a smile, and fighting spirit flashed past his eyes. No, my senses can't be wrong. This guy is worthy of a battle. TSK. The 7 sons of Ao family snorted at the same time, appearing to think very much otherwise. 7 sons of Ao family, what are you snorting at? Need a beating? Senior brother Yu looked over without hiding the scorn in his expression. You. A defeated opponent. Ao Jian Cheng waggled his finger, appearing to think otherwise. Haha, Yu Kai Yu, whenever you can beat the 7th, then you can challenge the rest of us. Ao Xinglai said. Ao Jian Cheng wasn't the youngest amongst the 7 sons of Ao family, but since his strength was the weakest, he ranked last. Hearing Ao Xinglai's words, Ao Jian Cheng couldn't help but reveal a hint of anger. Inside the Ao family, competition was also fierce, and he was not resigned to sit at the 7th place. Yu Kaiyu said, "Wait till I advance into the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. I will challenge each one of you." "You say it like you're very impressive." Ao Feng Hang picked his ears, and then blew at his finger, showing his disdain in overtones. Chapter 338, Cousin. Chapter 338, Cousin. Reverie _ The Ao family and the Yu family had never got along, and the older people naturally knew why, but the newbies didn't understand. They only thought that elder chiefs, Ao and Yu, had differing views, which resulted in their juniors also being locked in a fierce struggle. However, they didn't know that it was because of the hatred between their children 20 years ago that made the two families that were supposed to become relatives stand on opposing sides. But no matter how much they didn't get along, they wouldn't end up in a deadlock in public. After all, the two families each had one elder chief, but looking again at the two families' descendants, while there were certainly many incompetent people in the Ao family, there had to be a few prodigies because Ao Feng left his seed everywhere and had so many children. And the probability of it was somewhat surprising, since there were actually 7 people, and each one was stronger than Yu Kaiyu. Apparently, in the fight between the family's descendants, the Ao family won, moreover with an overwhelming advantage. If Ling Han knew, he would definitely sneer. Really? If every one of Ao Feng's sons died, then it would be useless no matter how talented they are. In the field, Ling Han's threw punches like the rain. His fists became faster and faster, and the 5th flash of fist chi was almost cultivated by him, just about to burst out. This gave the girl an enormous amount of pressure. She was doing her best to set off the exquisite pagoda, but this was a spirit tool and its strongest power was only comparable to the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, so how could it be of threat to Ling Han? When 1 hour was almost up, Ling Han threw a heavy punch and sent the girl flying with 5 flashes of fist chi. Hiss. This time, quite a few people were truly shocked. Even if Ling Han had already grasped 5 flashes of fist chi and concealed it earlier, that itself meant he was extraordinary. Besides, Ling Han clearly battled continuously for an hour earlier, and still persisted in a high-intensity battle for another hour. Such resilience was truly terrifying. This one shouldn't be underestimated. Ling Han stood tall, battling for 2 hours straight, but with his dantian and spiritual ocean's massiveness, such energy expenditure didn't even take up 1/100th of all his energy. Otherwise, he wouldn't battle in this way. TSK, he wasn't stupid. 21 to 30 step forward, the spiritual pedestal tier warrior said in a tone that was calm and without emotion. Yu Kaiyu took a sudden stride forward, arriving in front of Ling Han, and said, "You can now rest, and whenever you've recovered, we can battle." As he said that, quite a few people insulted him, calling him an idiot. Those who didn't take advantage where there was one were bastard. It involved the top 10 spots, and even if they couldn't get the top one, they could still receive medicinal pills and whatnot as rewards. Who wouldn't give it their all? Was it because he was too strong that he had such confidence? Haha, he knows that he can't beat us, the 7 sons of Ao family, so he might as well pretend to be generous. With us 7 here, he can at most rank number 8 anyways, Ao Gen said, showing his extreme disdain. Because spiritual ocean tier battle's destructive power was extremely immense, everyone watched the battle from several hundred meters away. At this distance, and on top of all the noise of the battles, it was very hard to hear what they said. So, Ling Han didn't know that the person in front of him was called Yu Kaiyu, and Yu Kaiyu couldn't hear Ao Gen's slander. Just from those words alone, Ling Han had a favorable impression of Yu Kaiyu, cupping his hand in obeisance as he said, "Senior brother, what should I call you?" "Yu Kaiyu." Ling Han was temporarily startled. Surnamed Yu, could he be Yu Zhenshan's son? He probed, "I wonder if you can tell me who Commander Yu Zhenshan, is to brother Yu?" "He's my father." Yu Kaiyu didn't find it strange. He was Yu Zhenshan's son, and all Winter Moon Sect's disciples would know such a matter. It wasn't some secret. As expected, this was his elder cousin. Ling Han laughed inside, and said inwardly, "Oh, elder cousin, it's your old man's fault for not stopping Ao Feng back then, causing my family to be worlds apart. Today, I'll beat up this elder cousin and hang that old uncle and beat him, then this contradiction can be counted as cleared. A family had no overnight hatred. This would seem to violate morals for most people. How could a nephew beat his uncle? But the soul dominating this body was the Grandmaster of Alchemy from 10 millennia ago, and although he accepted his current identity, it didn't mean his every word and every action would be limited by this identity. In a bad mood? Just vent that anger. No need to rest, let's fight. Ling Han made a hooking motion with his fingers. I'm at the cultivation of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, with 1 foot already in the 9th layer. Moreover, I cultivate 3 high-level black-grade arts. If you don't adjust to your optimal status, you definitely won't stand more than a single exchange of blows, Yu Kaiyu said, annoyed. I want to defeat you at your best, and not just win. Hihi, why must I satisfy you? Who do you think you are? Ling Han laughed aloud, charged outwards, and initiated the attack. Yu Kaiyu snorted, throwing a casual punch. He wanted to let Ling Han know what disparity meant, then, he would give Ling Han time to rest so that they could fight as fair as possible. Ling Han gave no sign of weakness, and greeted the attack with a punch. Peng! The two clashed once, and immediately, a visible shock wave rippled outwards. The pairs on the side were actually quite far away, but they were sent retreating continuously by this shock wave, staring aghast at them and caring no longer for their own battles. Heh! Yu Kaiyu was shocked. The power of Ling Han's punch wasn't much weaker than his. He had the cultivation of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier with overbearing power, but he couldn't suppress a guy in the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier. The spirit tool on his opponent had to be truly overpowered. Ling Han smiled and said, Senior brother Yu, let me beat you up, then we can be friends hereafter. There was subtext to his words, after we fight, we're all on the same side. However, Yu Kaiyu didn't know who Ling Han was, and couldn't help but be angered. This guy actually wanted to beat him up. Too contemptible. Where did he get such courage and confidence from? He released a long cry and began his attacks on Ling Han. This time he was infuriated, using arts. Both his fists instantly turned as dark as iron, the chilling metallic light on their surface. As the punch was thrown, martial intent blossomed. On his right fist, vein-like lines immediately shined, forming an odd pattern that instantly extended to his entire arm, almost as if his entire right arm turned into a spirit tool. With one punch thrown, even the air was pressuring Ling Han, forming visible hurricanes. That one surnamed you seem to have greatly improved his fist techniques, Ao Jian Cheng said, frowning. Ao Feng Hang nodded and said, if his power increased another tier, he might actually be a threat to us. Ao Xinglai simply laughed arrogantly. His strength surpassed the rest of the 7 by a whole lot. These 6 were truly narrow-minded, completely unaware of their own strengths, guessing presumptuously. Chapter 339, Let's Be Friends. Chapter 339, Let's Be Friends. Reverie _ Ling Han stepped forward and battled Yu Kaiyu. He also used the war elephant fist, without any intention of holding back. 5 flashes of fist chi burst out. One punch could fire out 4 light silver dragon elephants that emitted a primitive and desolate aura, charging towards Yu Kaiyu. Dragon elephants were mythical beasts from the ancient times that completely disappeared many millennia ago, leaving behind only a legend. There was no doubt that the dragon elephant was strong, being able to topple mountains and overturn seas, even splitting open heaven and earth. However, the true dragon elephant was entirely golden, and had the torso of a brute elephant. The power from curling its trunk could strangle even a true dragon to death. On the top of its head grew dragon horns that could support the skies, and its limbs were like the pillars of world that could suppress the earth. The dragon elephant that Ling Han fired out was only light silver in color, and only had the shape of a brute elephant without horns, so the power was naturally far from comparable to the real dragon elephant. However, this also made Ling Han quite surprised. If this fist technique was developed to its limits and could form a true dragon elephant, then just how powerful would one punch be? As expected, those 6 heaven-tier warriors in his previous life all had surprising backgrounds. This fist technique was definitely not simple. However, Ling Han had an indistinct feeling that the fist technique he received was not complete. If he continued to develop it, it could only reach Earth grade, and wouldn't be able to become a heaven-grade art, not to mention crossing into god-grade. From this perspective, Sword Emperor was the most practical. The 3 styles of black origin could be activated as long as one grasped Sword Chi, Sword Ray, or Sword Heart. If Na2 Lan also didn't die and entered God Realm, then he would definitely beat him up if there would be a chance to in the future. Hong. As Ling Han pondered, his battle with Yu Kai-yu became more intense. Yu Kai-yu was certainly beyond the norm with his cultivation of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but his true battle prowess reached 14 stars, possessing battle prowess surpassing 6 stars. This was very surprising, so even the expressions of the 7 sons of Ao family changed slightly. Yu Kai-yu could now fight on par with the 6 of them, and only Ao Xinglai could easily win, but if Yu Kai-yu advanced into the 9th layer, then maybe even Ao Xinglai could only share the limelight with him. Wrong, my battle prowess surpasses 7 stars. Ao Xinglai said inwardly. His gaze swept by, appearing to show some disdain. Although these brothers stood side by side, his battle prowess was stronger by 2 stars, making him feel somewhat wronged. The 7 of them should be called 1 dragon and 6 tigers. His strength was much stronger. The 6 other brothers had no right to stand by his side. But Ling Han was even more surprising. If his opponent was weak, his performance was relatively mediocre, but if his opponent was strong, his battle prowess changed accordingly. Yu Kai-yu's battle prowess reached 14 stars, but Ling Han completely kept up, without even a hint of falling at a disadvantage. How could anyone believe this? Just how strong was this guy? He was clearly in the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but also possessed battle prowess surpassing 6 stars, so his battle prowess should only be 7 stars. How could he then rival Yu Kai-yu's 14 stars of battle prowess? Could it be the spirit tool on him could further increase battle prowess by 7 stars? Yu Kai-yu bellowed repeatedly. Whether Ling Han used a spirit tool or not, he, who was a dignified practitioner at the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, still couldn't suppress Ling Han at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier. It was a fact he couldn't accept at all. He naturally had spirit tools, spirit talismans, and medicinal pills that could increase battle prowess for a short amount of time, but he was too proud. Having such a great advantage in cultivation, he still needed to use external things like spirit tools. Then what meaning would a victory should he win have? He would only lose face. He held in his breath, and continued to exchange blows with Ling Han. Hey, that newbie this year is too strong, right? Even senior brother, you can't suppress him. If both of them get eliminated, then that would be too hilarious, a Winter Moon Sect's disciple said. Wouldn't that be a good thing? Another spot would be open. True. Of those under 30 years old, only the 7 sons of Ao family can suppress senior brother Yu. That guy there called Sword of Justice something is strong too. He's only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but his battle prowess is at least 12 stars. Truly surprising. Didn't you guys hear Elder Chief Sha say that martial arts are in a super golden age when prodigies are emerging without end, and perhaps there would be freaks in the future with battle prowess surpassing 10 stars? There were many discussions in the surrounding people, and as more and more people were eliminated, the remaining people were the more dazzling. Senior brother Yu, thank you, Ling Han suddenly said without rhyme or reason. Yu Kai-yu completely had no idea what he was talking about, and just when he was about to snap back, Ling Han threw a punch with 6 flashes of fist chi advancing and turning into 7 dragon elephants that charged at him. What? He was greatly shocked that there were actually 6 flashes of fist chi. This was already the consummate of great mastery, almost crossing into the rank of kings. This was too scary. He, too, only grasped 6 flashes of fist ki. The 7th flash was like a chasm, which he was stuck at for more than 4 years. He just couldn't cross into the king's realm of 7 or more flashes. This thank you was because Ling Han quickly achieved a breakthrough under Yu Kai-yu's pressure. Of course, the main reason was that he had originally grasped 7 flashes of sword chi, or else no matter how much of a genius he was, he wouldn't be able to easily achieve a breakthrough. With these 6 flashes of fist chi firing out, and on top of the war elephant fist, Ling Han gradually took the upper hand. His power was originally no weaker than Yu Kai-yu's, and now he was no longer at a disadvantage in the amount of fist chi flashes. Moreover, his art was stronger than Yu Kai-yu's, and adding the discernment of a heaven tier on top of that. If he still couldn't take the upper hand, then he should really just find a block of tofu and knock himself to death. Hong, 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 he launched punch after punch like a barbarian from the wilderness, impervious to reason, simply throwing punches of iron to crush everything. Flash after flash of martial intent exploded, its light dazzling. Yu Kai-yu retreated repeatedly. With his current battle prowess, he was no longer a match for Ling Han. He hesitated on whether or not he should unleash his spirit tool, because Ling Han apparently used spirit tools. However, as he thought of the great advantage he had in tier, which was enough to compensate for this spirit tool, the two were fighting fairly. If he used a spirit tool, then it would not be the fair fight he'd sought. Peng! Without completing his train of thought, he took a heavy punch on the face and was instantly sent flying. He only felt numbness on a part of his face and a pungent taste in his throat. He opened his mouth and hacked out blood continuously, along with 3 broken teeth. Ling Han leapt over and reached with his hand out toward Yu Kai-yu, smiling as he said, "We're even, and from now on we're fellow brothers." Yu Kai-yu only thought that fellow brothers meant senior or junior apprentice. He instinctively touched his cheek, and said, "You punched me so heavily and still think of becoming brothers with me?" Ling Han smiled mischievously, took out a pill bottle, and said, "This is Return Origin Pill." Yu Kai-yu's gaze instantly burned up with fervor. Return Origin Pill was the highest quality 4th-tier medicinal pill. It couldn't improve cultivation and couldn't restore origin power. It had only one function: compacting one's tier. Chapter 340, A True Tycoon. Chapter 340, A True Tycoon. Reverie _ For a genius like Yu Kai-yu, the more solidly he compacted his foundation, the higher the tier he would be able to charge into in the future and the stronger his battle prowess compared to the same tier would be. Normal people were different. Being able to break through was a great joy. They didn't care about the foundation and whatnot, prioritizing improving their tier. If the foundation wasn't sturdy enough, then how high of a building could one build? When it reached a certain height, it would collapse. Thus, the more talented one was, the less one would be in blind pursuit of improving tiers. Amongst the 7 heaven-tier warriors in Ling Han's past, Ma Wei-yang was the typical case of a great talent that matured slowly. His aptitude was the worst amongst the 7 and his every leap slower than the others, but at each and every step, he compacted his foundation extremely sturdily. No large tier ever posed a problem to him, and at last, he crossed into the heaven tier only 10 years later than Sword Emperor and the rest. It was clear just how important compacting the foundation was. The problem lay in that even though everyone knew that compacting it at each step was very important, just how should they do it? Relying on one's own efforts to solidify a tier to the extreme, then breaking through needed at least a dozen years, or even more. However, in case of those below the flower blossom tier, they only had 100 years or so of lifespan, so how could they have enough time? Thus, it was obvious just how precious medicinal pills that compacted one's cultivation were. First, such medicinal pills were hard to refine, and second, the original ingredients were too scarce. There was demand but no supply. Even if one carried a mountain of gold and silver, one might not even be able to buy it, and even if one were able to, one might not be able to buy enough. It wasn't like taking one was enough. It needed to be consumed continuously as one raised one's tier so as to keep solidifying each tier. Yu Kai-yu was now at the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean, and he at least needed 100 or so restore origin pills to fully compact his cultivation at the spiritual ocean tier to the point of it being unshakable. Once he saw Ling Han take out such a medicinal pill, not only was Yu Kai-yu's gaze burning with desire, even the 7 sons of Ao family revealed greedy expressions. There were too many descendants in the Ao family. Even if their family was affluent, after dividing share after share, what could possibly remain? Luckily, the 7 sons of Ao family had amazing talent, receiving the sex-emphasized fostering, or else, relying solely on the Ao family to grow. It would be pretty decent if just 1 or 2 of them excelled in their family. After all, the Winter Moon sect wasn't the Ao family's. So, Ling Han shook the pill bottle. Inside was a total of 20 restore origin pills, which he refined after receiving yellow dragon fruits. He originally planned to give it to Liu Yutong and the others, but he unexpectedly met Yu Kai-yu first. Planning on being my friend yet? Mph, I'm indomitable before threats and immune to bribery, Yu Kai-ku said, clenching his teeth. Ling Han sighed, took out another pill bottle, and shook it. Inside it were 20 more Restore Origin pills. Fuck. The temptation of 1 bottle of Restore Origin pill he could resist, but 2 bottles, even if it couldn't compact his tear to perfection, half of the work would be done. Besides, the Yu family was also a large family, and with 40 Restore Origin pills, he'd already have half and be more sure of getting all 80 he needed. He already ate 10 pellets before, so he would probably be able to cultivate the spiritual ocean tear to perfection. At this rate, he should be invincible at the spiritual ocean tier, and once he crossed into the spiritual pedestal tier, he would possess at least 5 stars battle prowess. Ling Han laughed mischievously and took out a 3rd pill bottle, shaking it and placing it with the others. Yu Kai-yu couldn't help but lick his lips and said, "Don't you say that this bottle is also Restore Origin pills?" Ling Han threw over the 3 pill bottles and said with a smile, "You've probably eaten these outdated pills, check for yourself." Outdated? Hearing this, everyone felt the urge to beat the hell out of Ling Han. If Restore Origin pill was outdated, what counted as recent? The well-fed wouldn't know how the starving suffered. Yu Kai-yu opened a pill bottle and dumped the medicinal pills onto his hand. These were yellow, bean-sized pills, each emitting a bittersweet smell, which was very familiar to him. It certainly is a Restore Origin pill, and the quality is extremely high, he cried out, hurriedly checking the other 2 bottles of medicinal pills. The result was the same, which made his heart palpitate. The Yu family had few descendants, and he was the only one in the younger generation. It could be said that all the resources were used on him, but he had only ever eaten a dozen or so Restore Origin pills, which cost the Yu family countless financial resources and favors. However, Ling Han causally took out 60 Restore Origin pills. What did this mean? A tycoon, a super tycoon. How can you possibly have so many Restore Origin pills? He asked with a quiver in his voice. Seeing such a large fortune would make even his old man's knees go soft, because it could just about foster a perfect spiritual ocean tier warrior. It was an extremely shocking thing. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "Still bothered by that punch and not going to be my friend? Pa, if you give me 2 more bottles of Restore Origin pill, I can let you punch me twice more," Yu Kai-yu immediately said, having no backbone. This didn't cause other people to look down on him. Those were Restore Origin pills, and even if 1 punch could only be traded for 1 pill, countless people would be willing to present their faces for a beating. But who would be that bored and waste medicinal pills so extravagantly? Yu Kai-yu was proud without a doubt, but he wasn't an idiot. He immediately lowered his attitude and placed the benefits first. It wasn't humiliating to be beaten in a jest, anyways. He reached out to grab Ling Han and borrowed his power to stand up, but he then reached to touch his face and said, "But honestly, that punch of yours was truly heavy." Ling Han smiled. Thinking of the pain his old man suffered, could he have thrown a weak punch? If this punch landed on the 7 sons of Ao family or Ao Feng, it wouldn't be just about pain, but about taking their lives. My master is an alchemist, and is busy with refining pills all day. So, ask me for whatever medicinal pills you want. I'm so broke that the only thing I have left are medicinal pills, Ling Han explained. Everyone came to a sudden realization. This guy had a high-grade alchemist behind him. It was no wonder he could take out 3 bottles of Restore Origin pills. They were all envious, they wanted to be poor like that too. They looked at Ling Han with completely different gazes now. This wasn't a new member of the sect, but a golden and dazzling treasure chest, inside of which were infinite medicinal pills. The men all looked enviously at Yu Kai-yu, who easily received 3 bottles of Restore Origin pills, and they wanted even more to become friends with Ling Han. Medicinal pills could be taken as one pleased. The females looked at Ling Han with burning and seductive gazes. It obviously needn't be said what their intentions were. No wonder this guy had a 4th-tier high-quality spirit tool that could made his battle prowess break through 14 stars. Would one who could casually take out 3 bottles of Restore Origin pills lack money? Other things aside, as long as he was willing to trade Restore Origin pills, Would he still not be able to get a 4th-tier high-quality spirit tool? After this round of battles ended, there were only 30 people who qualified to stay. 11th to 20th place step forward. The spiritual pedestal tier was also somewhat shocked at Ling Han's confidence, but he still had a mission at hand. He still announced the start of the 8th round of battles. And this time, everyone avoided Ling Han the best they could. Chapter 341, Battling the 7th Son of Ao Family. Chapter 341, Battling the 7th Son of Ao Family. Reverie _ Previously, people thought that Ling Han was just a chicken, but now, this guy not only turned into somewhat of a fierce tiger, but also a god of wealth. Such a person, who would want to battle him? First, they might not even win. The top 100 and their strength had no definite relationship. Yu Kaiyu's strength was definitely in the top 10, but in the first round's exam, he only ranked in the 20s. Therefore, even Yu Kaiyu was defeated at the hands of Ling Han. Who else would be able to fend against Ling Han? Moreover, even if they won, it might not be a good thing. Who would want to be their friend if they were marked by Ling Han? So, each person wanted to avoid Ling Han. There were 9 other people to challenge anyways. However, there had to be a person with bad luck that would face Ling Han. He laughed embarrassedly, and said, "This humble one is Zheng Yuan. It's an honor to see senior brother Han. This battle won't be fought, this humble one concedes." First, he certainly wasn't Ling Han's match, and second, he wanted more do Ling Han a favor. Ling Han smiled slightly, and said, "You let me win." Zheng Yuan couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Was that all? He wanted to be friends with Ling Han. This guy was rich and imposing, and was absolutely shocking when he gave out 3 bottles of Restore Origin pill at once. In everyone's eyes, Ling Han was probably foolishly rich. Wasn't he? Taking out such a great gift to a person he just met, if this wasn't foolishly rich, what was it? Since that was so, why not give him a few bottles? He felt extremely awkward, but he had to turn back, retreating into the crowd. Seeing this, everyone thought to themselves, so this guy wasn't an idiot. After this round, there was only one more round left. Those who won could advance into top 10 and receive rewards. However, if they wanted to be first, then they definitely had to experience many battles. 1 hour later, the second last round completely ended, with only 20 people still remaining on the field. Amongst them, Winter Moon Sect's disciples took 14 spots. A large sect was a large sect after all, they certainly had deep roots. However, there were still 6 outsiders that remained. This meant that the strength of these outsiders was quite out of the ordinary. The truth was so. Some forces didn't establish sects or factions, and instead developed as a family. Although their strength couldn't be compared to that of a sect, after generations of accumulation, they possessed a shocking amount of cultivation resources. Concentrated all on one descendant, it was enough to create a prodigy. Yang Chong, Bai Ming, and Sai Chi Meng were amongst those, while the last 2 were males called Wang Ping and Shiji Yuan. Both were at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, which was truly shocking as they were only slightly inferior to Yu Kaiyu. Last round, start, the spiritual pedestal tier overseer said. "Hihi, which one of you will pick that guy?" The 7 sons of Ao family looked at each other. They had their attention on Ling Han. This guy can't be underestimated, even Yu Kaiyu was defeated at his hands, Ao Jian Cheng said. That's because Yu Kaiyu is too stupid and didn't use the spirit tool he had, stubbornly fighting head-on empty-handed. He was defeated because of idiocy, Ao Feng Hang said. That might not be the case. He received 3 bottles of Restore Origin pills, the price of which exceeds even the Thunder Battle armor. Not in the first place, yet he received medicinal pills that surpassed the first place, clearly a smart move. Whatever, if we can avoid him, then we'll avoid him and play with him in the final ranking battles. Yes. They reached a consensus, but the problem was, they wanted to avoid Ling Han, but what about others? It wasn't like people didn't see that Yu Kaiyu was no match for him, so as they stepped out, the other 3 people had already found their opponents. Obviously, none of them picked Ling Han. In other words, amongst the 7 of them, 1 had to face Ling Han. "I'll go." Ao Jian Cheng came forward. All right, then it's up to you, seventh brother. That's right, he's merely in the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If any other of us was sent out, then that would truly be thinking too highly of him. The other 6 sons nodded one after another, then each searched for their own opponents. Admit defeat and forfeit. Ao Jian Cheng stood in front of Ling Han with his hands behind his back and his chin slightly raised, revealing an air of arrogance. Has no one ever told you your mouth stinks? Ling Han snorted. Speak less with that stinky mouth. If you must pollute the air, then it looks like I'll have to slap you a few times and wake you up a bit. What an arrogant guy. Ao Jian Cheng frowned. Where do you get such courage from? Obviously from my strength. Ling Han hooked his finger in provocation. Come at me. If I don't beat you into a pig head, then I won't be surnamed Han. Haha, I certainly want to see how you will beat me into a pig head. Ao Jian Cheng laughed coldly, revealing a baleful expression. He was really infuriated. Ling Han attacked. This was Ao Feng's son who chased behind his butt in the previous exam. Since he didn't want to unleash the demon birth sword and there was a strong cultivator secretly watching, it was hard to kill him even if he wanted to. Now, he advanced into the spiritual ocean tier, having the true qualifications to fight him head-on without relying on external forces. Hong, he fired a punch. The Earth spiritual ocean's origin power burst out violently and poured into his fist as martial intent manifested, forming bright vein-like lines and firing towards Ao Jian Cheng. Ao Jian Cheng had a stern expression. He dared not to be careless, since his opponent could defeat Yu Kai Yu, meaning he had a battle prowess of at least a shocking 14 stars. He drew his sword, and with a qiong, a chilling light like an expanse of autumn waters formed 6 flashes of sword qi, firing at Ling Han. 6 flashes of sword qi meant great mastery. Being able to rank in the 7 sons of Ao family even last Ao Jian Cheng's strength was extremely powerful. This was a spirit tool that could increase his battle prowess by 2 stars. The higher the tier, the better effects of spirit tools, medicinal pills, and spirit talismans were. This was obviously the case, so a 2-star increase in battle prowess was already quite considerable. Now, Ao Jiang Cheng's battle prowess skyrocketed to 16 stars. As the sword struck out with 6 flashes of sword qi moving unhindered, the air was torn apart, forming swirls that kept spinning in the air. In all fairness, Ling Han's cultivation was certainly a shortcoming, and even though his power could rival the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, Ao Jian Cheng was in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, not to mention that he might be stronger than an average cultivator with that power. More importantly, fist techniques were Ling Han's forte. 14 stars, nearing 15 stars was his limit at this moment, and it was impossible to increase it. No matter, he also has a spirit tool. Purple Star Handguard. He immediately activated this spirit tool. Wang, under a power boost, his battle power instantly skyrocketed. Power was the most essential core aspect of battle prowess. As power increased, his battle prowess increased correspondingly by a step. However, 15 stars near 16 stars still was a level inferior to Ao Jian Cheng. Ling Han still had moves. Heaven Tier's experience was there. Ao Jian Cheng's every move could be immediately seen through, including where the next attack would land. Such foresight not only offset the difference in battle prowess of 1 star, but also made Ling Han have the upper hand. Hiss, the people that watched standing in a circle all cried out. This was too inconceivable. Looks like the new friend I made is a downright freak. Yu Kai Yu muttered, and reached to feel the restore origin pills inside his pocket. He now felt a sense of unrealiness. Chapter 342, Face Slapping starts with the 7th oldest. Chapter 342, Face Slapping starts with the 7th oldest. Reverie _ Ling Han had the absolute initiative. He hadn't activated the Eye of Truth, or else, Ao Jian Cheng's weaknesses would be plain for him to see. As long as their battle prowess wasn't too different, this would definitely be lethal, allowing him to win in a few moves. After all, this was a mystical power. Impossible. Ao Jian Cheng bellowed in anger. He was now near his full battle prowess, but he not only couldn't suppress Ling Han, but also lost the upper hand. He couldn't accept this at all. Ling Han smiled slightly, and said, "Nothing's impossible, just behave and get slap." "You wish." Ao Cheng was very conceited. Ranking last amongst the 7 sons of Ao family was something he had to bear temporarily, and sooner or later he would soar into the skies. He hadn't soared yet and already suffered a heavy hit to the head, making everything look chaotic and gloomy. He actually couldn't beat someone at the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. He absolutely couldn't believe and accept it. "Ah!" he yelled angrily, took out a spirit talisman, and pressed it onto his chest. Instantly, violent origin power overflowed like a sea as his power increased sharply. His battle prowess soared by 2 stars. This allowed him to directly suppress Ling Han, retaking the initiative. The spirit talisman he used was called Small Devil Sky Talisman. It could temporarily increase power, and its effects lasted about 10 minutes. So, he definitely had to defeat Ling Han within this time, or else this precious spirit talisman would go to waste. No way, 7th eldest Ao was forced to use a spirit talisman. It's truly unbelievable. So the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier can be so strong. I've heard of a prodigy called Ling Han in the desolate north. At the first layer of the gushing spring tier, he defeated Feng Yang, who was at the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. I always thought it was impossible, but seeing this situation, I actually believe it now. That's too surprising. How can someone at the first layer of the gushing spring tier possess such terrifying battle prowess? Just how many stars does this guy's battle prowess have? Everyone looked on, shuddering with fear. It was too unacceptable that a person could be so strong. Even the old spiritual pedestal tier cultivators' brows twitched. They really picked up a jewel. Such a prodigy could be counted first-rate even in the middle state. "Why don't you lose?" "Lose. Lose." Ao Cheng shouted. If he still couldn't win after activating the spirit talisman, then he would really be disgraced. Ling Han snorted and said, "Quit daydreaming." He finally activated the Eye of Truth. Light golden vein-like lines flashed by, and Ao Cheng's each and every move was infinitely slowed down in his eyes. Here, and here, full of weak points. Ling Han was shocked. With his heaven-tier experience, he only found 7 of Ao Chen's weak points, but considering both the power and attack speed, none of the 7 weak points could be used. If he picked any of these 7 points to attack, the result would bring destruction to both sides. He had the indestructible Heaven Scroll and definitely could endure more than Ao Cheng, but he refused to win like this. This was Ao Feng's son, so he had to win with ease and verve. Under the Eye of Truth, the number Ao Cheng's weak points was enlarged to 19. He immediately began calculating in his mind, simulating the result of an attack on each weak point. An instant later, he found an answer. He charged towards Ao Cheng. What? Impossible. Did my vision blur? In the midst of everyone's cries, Ling Han avoided all of Ao Cheng's attacks. His body swayed continuously as if he'd turned into a man made of paper. It looked unbelievable and completely unreasonable, but it turned out to be perfect evasion, which allowed him to arrive in front of Ao Cheng with ease. Pa! Ling Han raised his hand and threw a slap, landing a solid blow on Ao Cheng's face, crisp and clear-sounding. Ao Cheng's eyes turned red. He yelled furiously, "I'll kill you." He was beyond furious. How humiliating was it for one of the dignified 7 sons of Ao family to be slapped in public? He attacked in frenzy. However, before Ling Han, who activated the Eye of Truth, what meaning did such counterattacks have? Their strength was about the same, and the effects of the Eye of Truth were extremely amazing. Pa! Ling Han threw slaps continuously, and Ao Cheng kept being slapped. One tooth after another fell out, but he couldn't resist at all. He could only shout angrily in vain. What meaning did it have that his attacks were brutal if they couldn't land? Enough. The spiritual pedestal tier cultivator could watch no longer. This wasn't called a battle, but a one-sided torture. It wouldn't be a big deal if it were someone else, but Ao Cheng was Ao Feng's son, so he couldn't possibly stare blankly while Ao Cheng was humiliated. Otherwise, Ao Feng would definitely give him a hard time. Ao Feng could at least cross into the flower blossom tier in the days to come, and he wouldn't want Ao Feng to bear a grudge against him. Pa! Pa, Ling Han whipped out for more slaps, cleaning out all of Ao Jiancheng's teeth before withdrawing his hand and backing down. There was no way Ao Jiancheng could stomach an insult like this, so he leapt out again towards Ling Han. "So already said to stop, yet you continue to fight. Are you looking down on sir?" Ling Han taunted Ao Jiancheng. Ao Jiancheng was almost driven mad. Earlier, when the spiritual pedestal tier overseer said to stop, "You damned still slapped me 4 times, and now you're trolling me? How shameless can you be? Too base, too lowly, and too treacherous." The spiritual pedestal tier warrior's expression was somewhat gloomy, annoyed at both Ao Jiancheng and Ling Han. These two guys didn't take him seriously at all. One was Ao Feng's son, and the other had freakish battle prowess which meant boundless prospects. He couldn't do anything about either of them. This naturally made him very morose. "Enough," he said coldly. "In this battle, the 7th son loses, and Han Ling wins." Yu touched his face and said, "Compared to the 7th son, I only lost 3 teeth. I guess that counts as preferential treatment, right? What sort of medicine did this guy eat that made him so fierce?" The other battles ended one after another, and the other 6 sons of Ao family won, but their expressions were quite terrible. No matter how competitive the atmosphere within the Ao family, they were all Ao family's people as far as outsiders were concerned. Now that the 7th son was slapped publicly and even had all his teeth cleaned out, how could they not be livid? "This guy actually dares to humiliate Ao family's people in public. We can't forgive him," Ao Jian said coldly. "However, he can defeat 7th so easily. I'm afraid that other than the eldest, the other sons wouldn't be his match. More importantly, that guy's is only in the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. No matter what spirit tool, spirit talisman, or medicinal pill he has used to give him such battle prowess, it's still terrifyingly shocking." The 6 sons of Ao family frowned at the same time as an intense sense of danger arose among them. Chapter 343, 5th Oldest. Chapter 343, 5th Oldest. Reverie _ Ling Han stood on the side, feeling slight pain in his right eye. This was because his cultivation was not sufficient, causing a sense of discomfort after using the Eye of Truth for a short while. He immediately activated the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and with that supreme art circulating, his right eye soon recovered. After all, he'd only used it for a short while, but if he used it for a longer period of time, then it definitely wouldn't recover so easily. Ao Jiancheng no longer had the face to stay. He had no chance for top 10 anyways, so he naturally turned to leave. Otherwise, wouldn't he be a laughingstock for others? Everyone looked at Ling Han with shock in their eyes. This guy made his mark with this victory. The 7 sons of Ao family were definite prodigies among the younger generation, although above them were spiritual pedestal tier warriors. All of them were over 30 years old. In the world of marital arts, 30 years of age was the demarcation between the young and the mature. You were young below 30 and mature above. Of course, the boundaries had to be renewed after crossing into the flower blossom tier, when martial artists' lifespan greatly increased. It could be imagined that after today's exam, the entire Winter Moon sect would be in a commotion, and the old monsters that stayed hidden for a long time could appear, fighting over this exceedingly talented guy to become their direct disciple. Now the battles for top 10 will be carried out, the formidable spiritual pedestal tier said. Only the 10 of you remain, each person has to fight the other 9 once. A win marks 3 points, a draw marks 1 point, and a loss marks none. Each battle will be at most a little over half an hour, and if it runs out, that would be treated as a draw. Start. He swept Ling Han a glance, somewhat irked, but Ling Han's talent was too freakish it didn't matter even if he was annoyed. In a few years, Ling Han's cultivation might surpass him to the point where he could only look up to him. In the martial arts world, only cultivation and strength mattered. Who would look at age and experience? Everyone picked opponents with caution. There was a strategy to this. For example, if one could originally rank in the middle but encountered a formidable foe right away and ended up heavily injured, then one's rank might end up at the bottom. After entering top 10, the reward they received would be much better with every rank, so everyone naturally wanted to scoop up more points. Ling Han was too strong, and Ao Xinglai was probably the only one qualified to be his opponent, so most people wanted to avoid him, facing him and Ao Xinglai as the last two opponents. But how could this be possible? Ao Xinglai also didn't decide to challenge Ling Han first, and instead picked another person as an opponent. Amongst the top 10, 6 were from the Ao family, so Ling Han chose one at random. The chance of encountering Ao family's men reached 2/3. His opponent was Ao Jian, who ranked 5th. Everyone called him Ao the 5th or 5th eldest Ao. Ao Jian dared not to be careless. He stepped forward with a stern expression and his sword in hand. Ling Han smiled slightly, a baleful look in his eyes. He had no positive feelings for anyone in the Ao family, so if he caught one, he'd give them a fierce beating. If he weren't at the Winter Moon sect, he would definitely take the 5th eldest into the Black Tower. Whether he'd just imprison him or kill him, that would be entirely up to his mood. Ao Jian didn't speak superfluous words, simply striking with an ultimate move. As the sword struck out, surprisingly whole 6 flashes of sword chi flew unhindered. The 7 sons of Ao family ruled the roost in the younger generation of the Winter Moon sect. They certainly shouldn't be underestimated. Just looking at the 6 flashes of sword chi, one would know. In the Rain Country, even the older generation of sword users didn't have such strength. The amount of sword chi represented one's understanding of the sword path. Ling Han opened the Eye of Truth, dashing forward and forcibly shuffling through the space between Ao Jian's attacks and arriving with ease before Ao Jian, whose gaze was full of disbelief. Pa, 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 he attacked his face. With each punch thrown, Ao Jian would spit out a mouthful of blood along with the cracked teeth. Ling Han threw a total of 32 punches, and Ao Jian also spat out 32 mouthfuls of blood and 32 broken teeth. Peng, when Ling Han threw the final punch, Ao Jian was sent flying in a parabolic arc, landing heavily on the ground and passing out right away. What? Everyone gasped in astonishment. The saying went, beat someone but not their face, but Ling Han specially beat the face that was too vicious, right? Martial artists wanted face the most, not to mention such proud people like the 7 sons of Ao family. However, the 2 that fought hand to hand against Ling Han had all of their teeth cleared out. Would this lead up to a death feud? He was too vicious. Yu involuntarily touched his face, feeling even luckier that he only lost 3 teeth. Ling Han said that he wanted to be friends with him, and it was quite true, but something felt off. This fight ended very quickly. From the start of the battle, Ling Han extremely dominatingly slapped Ao Jian 32 consecutive times, so fast like it was a gust of wind. After the wind blew by, the battle's outcome was decided. That spiritual pedestal tier overseer's expression was a bit gloomier. This was the 2nd son in the Ao family to be cleared of all his teeth. Ao Feng would definitely have a grudge against him for this since he was the supervisor. This was an undeserved catastrophe, making him feel a bit more displeased with Ling Han. Ling Han didn't care about these things and sat down abruptly to recover some of the origin power he expended. Actually, he really didn't expend much origin power. He only did it for show so that he'd appear a bit more normal. It was mainly to relieve the soreness in his eyes. Activating the Eye of Truth 2 consecutive times gave him some pressure. The indestructible Heaven's Scroll already circulated and the discomfort in his eyes disappeared quickly, but this time, it was somewhat slower than the first time. Half an hour later, all the battles ended, and everyone swapped opponents, battling again. This time, Ling Han's opponent wasn't one of the 7 sons of Ao family, and it wasn't a Winter Moon sect disciple, either. It was Yang Chong. The little overlord spear. Brother Han, how could such a strong person like you have no reputation and suddenly pop out today? Yang Chong unleashed his 6-meter-long silver spear. The spear's body was like clear *1, pointing at Ling Han and emitting a terrifying baleful aura. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, "Can't I just cultivate wholeheartedly and make my mark with one brilliant feat? Then Brother Han's restraint is truly worthy of admiration." Yang Chong took sudden large strides and charged towards Ling Han, using the spear like a long rod and fiercely sweeping it horizontally. Hoo! The gust of wind whistled as if a silver dragon, rippling waves of gust. Pa, 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 ceaseless explosive sounds rang out as well. This spear's speed broke through the speed of sound. Ling Han charged up his punch and fired it at the body of the spear. Hong! His punch landed on the body of the spear, and instantly, his whole body trembled fiercely. Every inch was an advantage. This long spear swept horizontally, not only accumulating Yang Chong's full power, but also maximizing the power in the motion. Unless Ling Han's power far surpassed Yang Chong's, this would be the only result of receiving this attack head-on. In contrast, Yang Chong's the space cracked open and blood oozed out. However, he immediately changed the sweep to a thrust, plunging towards Ling Han's chest. Sweeping the long spear again like a rod needed lots of room to rotate it, and if he were to sweep again, then it would give Ling Han a lot of time to recover, so how would it be a smart move for him? Thus, he thrust the spear. This was a follow-up move, and one of the strongest moves in Overlord spear art. Chapter 344, Little Overlord Spear. Chapter 344, Little Overlord Spear. Reverie _ Ling Han's physique was extremely strong, having formed the rock cliff body. His body was like a rock, difficult to harm by sharp weapons. However, the main power from Yang Chong's attack came from the shock, as if it were shocking his entire body into pieces. For example, a sword slashed on a rock might only burst out a bunch of sparks, and while the rock stayed unharmed, the blade's edge instead would get bent. However, if a hammer was used to smash it, then it was very likely to smash the rock into a pile of rubbles. That was the case now. A wound immediately appeared on Ling Han's hand, and his entire right arm turned fully red. It was the blood that soaked through his clothes. Ling Han grimaced. He was a bit conceited, assuming that when he formed rock cliff body, he could look down on people of the same tier. This attack truly taught him a great lesson. He reached out with his left hand and grabbed at the spear's tip. Audacious. Yang Chong snorted. His nickname was Little Overlord Spear. Who could seize his spear? He thrust the spear hard. Pu, 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 pu. 6 flashes of spear chi were generated and turned into 6 silver spearheads that thrust at Ling Han's shoulder, throat, chest, and face. Ling Han smiled slightly. Would he suffer a second time? Fist chi burst forth, and 6 silver-colored fists appeared, firing towards the spear chi. Peng, 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 peng. Muffled sounds reverberated as the spearheads and silver fists clashed. It was clearly visible that the spearheads were completely annihilated, but the silver-colored fists had some energy left, continuing to travel for a distance before being extinguished by the gust brought about by the long spear. Hiss. Everyone was shocked. What was chi? It was power and martial intent combined. Without corresponding martial arts comprehension, chi wouldn't be strong. With only martial arts comprehension and no power, chi also wouldn't be strong. Thus, the collision of chi was the most simple and unadorned impact that couldn't be faked. It was a collision of hard power. Ling Han's chi forcibly suppressed Yang Chong's spear chi. What did this prove? Kick-ass. What's more surprising is that the spear set off Yang Chong's spear. Kithit spear is a spirit tool, right? Yet Han Ling's punch, which was set off completely unarmed, could suppress the spear chi fired by it, proving that Han Ling's martial intent is far above Yang Chong. Someone saw what was even deeper. There was no doubt, since they were the elites amongst the younger generation in the Winter Moon sect, and had a discerning eye. This freak. He's only 19, wait till he reaches 29 years old. What heights would he reach? He probably might be recruited by a large force in middle state like Zhu Xian'er was. He improved relying on medicinal pills anyways. The majority was surprised, but some were disdainful, thinking that everything Ling Han achieved was because of medicinal pills. If they could also receive fostering by endless medicinal pills, they would definitely be stronger than Ling Han. These people were obviously envious. Ling Han grabbed the spear tip. The rock cliff body, on top of origin power, guarded his hand, and vein-like lines spread out, radiating brightly. Yang Chong pulled his spear, but discovered that his spear was as if it were rooted in Ling Han's hand, completely immobile. A baleful look surfaced in his eyes. He stopped pulling, and simply poured all his force on the spear, pressing towards Ling Han. He didn't believe that, under such a thrust, Ling Han could still be as if nothing had happened while holding the spear with his bare palms. One had to know that his spear was a 4th-tier spirit tool. Ling Han snorted and shook his right arm, forcibly pushing the spear aside. Yang Chong was pouring all his strength in, so when the strength resisting him disappeared, he instantly fell forward uncontrollably. Ling Han raised his right fist and left it straight up, placing it on the track where Yang Chong was charging. Yang Chong's expression changed drastically. If he rammed into it, it would be seen as him ramming his face into Ling Han's fist. However, he had just used his full strength to thrust forward, so how could he be able to stop this momentum? Teng, 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 with quick steps, he rammed into Ling Han's fist. From everyone else's perspective, this scene was extremely strange. Ling Han raised his fist long ago, and Yang Chong was as if he were possessed, ramming into it with his face of his own accord. Moreover, it was done with all his might. As the cheek and the fist were about to close contact, everyone closed their eyes, unable to look. This was an obvious tragedy. Yang Chong's face was twisted. He didn't want to, but he really couldn't stop. Peng! His face rammed heavily into Ling Han's fist, and under the forceful impact, he instantly spun rapidly towards one side, almost breaking his neck. Fortunately, with this external force, he was instead able to control his body now. He hurriedly stepped downwards with his feet, forcibly halting the momentum. But how could a face compare to a fist? Not to mention Ling Han's fist was refined by the indestructible Heaven Scroll, as hard as a rock. The result of this head-on exchange was that the right side of his cheek bulged greatly, making him look like a pig's head. One side was like a pig's head, and the other side was completely normal. Seeing such an intense contrast, people couldn't help but laugh, and quite a few people burst into laughter. Ling Han also laughed. Junior brother Yang is so bold and fierce, actually using your face to attack my fist. My respects, my respects. Could junior brother Yang be planning on abandoning the spear and cultivating the legendary iron-faced art? Being teased like this, Yang Chong was naturally fuming with anger, but no matter how one saw it, it looked like he used his face to ram Ling Han's fist. Ling Han stood completely still and he was the one who approached it on his own accord. Damn it, this damned bastard. Yang Chong pulled himself together, brandished the silver spear, and said, "The outcome hasn't been decided, don't you get happy too soon." You can justify and speak with such reason while looking like a pig head. Junior brother Yang's legendary iron-faced art is already somewhat successful. Ling Han continued to mock. Damn it. Yang Chong couldn't bear it anymore. He swept the long spear, charging in a frenzy at Ling Han with the same old trick. Ling Han suffered once and wouldn't receive it head-on again unless he formed iron sheet body. With a body like a metal chunk, he probably wouldn't fear such a head-on exchange. He laughed loudly and said, "In 3 moves, I'll make you kneel and sing the conquer song." Bullsh. T. Yang Chong gained knowledge through pain. He wouldn't give Ling Han the chance to grab his spear as he brandished the long spear in circles smoothly and quickly. Ling Han dove right in. Under the eye of truth, would moves at a mere 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier have no flaws? He charged in front of Yang Chong from an inconceivable route, fired a punch, and said, "A spear's advantage is in its long-ranged attacks and the immense power from sweeps, but at close range, a long spear has not much use and is only a burden." Yang Chong clenched his teeth, and made his left hand available to fend off Ling Han's fist. Peng! He immediately staggered and retreated. However, he was smart, thinking to take advantage of this backward momentum to increase the distance between him and Ling Han before organizing a counterattack. However, how could he use such a small trick in front of Ling Han? Ling Han followed him like one's own shadow. Peng, 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 he threw 2 consecutive punches and sent Yang Chong flying. As expected, he only used 3 moves. Chapter 345, The Final Battle. Chapter 345, The Final Battle. Ling Han obtained 2 successive victories. Furthermore, each victory was gained very efficiently and his momentum was getting stronger and stronger. The 3rd round of challenges began, and Ling Han encountered yet another one of the 7 sons of the Ao clan. He was the 6th one, and his name was Ao Ming Jie. As a result, there was no reason for Ling Han to be reserved. He activated the Eye of Truth and slapped his opponent's face as much as he liked. After 32 heavy punches, Ao Mingjie also became a toothless guy. This time, everyone was now clear. Ling Han definitely nursed a grudge against the Ao family. Against anyone else, Ling Han would merely defeat his opponent. Though he would still heavily wound his opponent, but none of them had such horrible encounters and had all their teeth beaten out of their mouths. However, what kind of existence was the Ao clan in the Winter Moon sect? A boss. The forefather of the Ao family was one of the sect's grand elders, an old monster in the spiritual infant tier. Why did he have to make relations so tense with the Ao family? Even if he was young and hot-blooded, he still shouldn't have acted so arrogant. Ling Han had no need for others to understand the way he did things. He simply waited. The opponent for the next round was also one of the 7 sons of the Ao clan, Ao Xinghan, who was third in the order. Needless to say, the result was that Ling Han gave him a heavy thrashing, and he, too, became a toothless guy. In the next round, Ling Han was up against Sai Chi Meng. This girl was indeed very strong. She had charged all the way here, and her current result was 1 victory and 3 losses. Her one and only victory was obtained during her battle with Bai Ming. She was quite straightforward as well, and directly admitted defeat. There was nothing else she could do. Her 3 losses were experienced at the hands of the 7 sons of the Ao clan. Since Ling Han was capable of thrashing the 7 sons of the Ao clan so easily, what need was there to clearly describe the gap between her and Ling Han? She was a delicate beauty, and if she was actually beaten black and blue in front of everyone, how embarrassing would that be? Ling Han currently had 5 victories and 0 losses, and at the moment, was ranked first together with Ao Xinglai and Ao Yuan Wei. In the 6th round, he came up against Bai Ming. Bai Ming forfeited. In the 7th round, he was up against Ao Fengxing, and Ao Fengxing actually decisively admitted defeat and escaped the fate of having his face slapped and becoming a toothless guy. This made Ling Han very displeased. His expression was completely black, as if no matter whom he looked at, they were displeasing to his eyes. Everyone felt their faces twitch. Indeed, Ling Han really had a grudge against the Ao clan. It was unacceptable to him even if his opponent admitted defeat, and he would actually be mad because of it. In the 8th round, Ling Han was up against Ao Yuan Wei. However, this guy did not admit defeat, and wanted to battle with Ling Han. His ability was indeed slightly stronger than that of the other 5 sons of the Ao clan, but that was only by a small margin. He had just moved to attack when Ling Han instantly activated his Eye of Truth to see the pattern of his attack clearly. Ling Han rushed out and gave him a heavy thrashing. Immediately, he fell to the same fate as his 4 brothers and also became a toothless guy. Ling Han covered his eyes. As he had successively activated the Eye of Truth, the burden was too heavy on him. This was not the kind of injury that could be healed just by circulating the indestructible heaven scroll, but rather a powerful weariness that had arisen in his spirit. He would need a long rest to recover after this. In the final battle against Ao Xinglai, it looked like he wouldn't be able to use his Eye of Truth anymore. Otherwise, he could possibly suffer a severe backlash, and that was definitely not a pleasant experience. That was all right. The Eye of Truth was only one of his trump cards. He still had other trump cards, such as the indestructible Heaven Scroll. If worse comes to worst, he'd use his own injuries in exchange for injuring Ao Xinglai and see if that would kill the latter. When he thought of this, Ling Han could not help but exude a powerful vicious aura. Family was his reverse scale, and Ao Feng actually injured his father and imprisoned his mother. This provoked the demonic nature in his bloodstream. This is the final round. Begin, the elite of the spiritual pedestal tier said calmly, though his eyes were fixed upon Ling Han and Ao Xinglai. In his opinion, Ao Xinglai was the most likely candidate for the champion, the only possible candidate, but there was actually another with 8 victories and 0 losses now. This was something that he had never imagined would happen. The victor that would emerge between these 2 young men would be the champion of the disciple recruitment trial this time round. However, if Ling Han was the champion, that would make the forefather of the Ao clan very unhappy. That was because the forefather of the Ao clan was the one who had strongly suggested for the Thunder Battle Armor to be used as the prize for the champion. His intentions were very clear, and that was to make this Thunder Battle Armor the property of the Ao clan. At first, This was practically assured. All 7 sons of Ao family had stepped out, but the result was really not that certain. Between Ling Han and Ao Xinglai, who was stronger? Before this, no one would have any doubts, and would definitely confirm with absolute certainty that the strongest in the spiritual ocean tier in the Winter Moon sect was definitely Ao Xinglai. But now, after witnessing Ling Han's formidable battle prowess, no one would dare to vouch for it so surely. This young man was really too miraculous. Ling Han faced Ao Xinglai directly. This was Ao Feng's most outstanding son, and if he thrashed him heavily, Ao Feng would definitely be very displeased, wouldn't he? Ling Han could not help but grin and said, "I hope you will not admit defeat." "Haha, do you think I'm one of those trash?" Ao Xinglai asked coldly, his face filled with disdain. These words were a blow against the other 6 sons of the Ao clan, and made the 5 that were still here all look furious. However, their faces were all swollen from Ling Han's thrashing, so one couldn't really tell that there was any change in their expressions. "Very good, then I will have no need to worry." Ling Han released a breath in relief. "I am definitely going to slap your face." Ao Xinglai was so furious that his whole body shook. That was underestimating him too much. "Young man, usually a loose tongue causes a lot of trouble. You have a bad mouth, and a pair of bad hands as well. I will cripple both your arms to let you know that the reputation of the Ao family is not to be tarnished by anyone," he said darkly. He had already suppressed all signs of his rage, which showed his training in martial arts. "Those are nice words, but you need real ability to back them up." Ling Han hooked his finger at him. "Come on, then. My fist can no longer wait to leave a mark on your face." Insolence. Ao Xinglai finally moved. A long sword appeared out of thin air. It was as black as ink, and the moment it appeared, the whole sky darkened for a moment before returning back to normal. Black Star Sword," the disciples of Winter Moon sect exclaimed in shock. Even the other 5 sons of the Ao clan wore ugly expressions, strong jealousy brimming in their eyes. The Black Star Sword was Ao Feng's signature weapon. It was a level 5 spirit tool, and could be successively activated. Even in the hands of someone in the spiritual ocean tier, it would be able to express the greatest battle prowess at the level of spiritual ocean tier. Now that this Black Star Sword had appeared in Ao Xinglai's hands, this at least clearly signified 2 things. First, Ao Feng saw Ao Xinglai as his real heir, and that was why he had passed on his own weapon to the latter. Second, it was very likely that Ao Feng was really about to step into the Flower Blossom tier, so he could even give his level 5 spirit tool to someone else. "That's right. This is the Black Star Sword." Ao Xinglai's face was filled with arrogance, and when he saw the jealous eyes of the other 5 sons, it made him extremely pleased. He had worked hard at cultivating for close to 20 years and did not dare to relax or be careless for even the slightest moment, and now he had finally made it. He was the new representative of the young generation of the Ao clan, the one and only. "Han Lin, I am representing the Ao clan to punish you." Ao Xinglai activated the Black Star Sword. One by one, the patterns lit up on the sword, and a terrifying aura emanated from it. "Punish your sister." Ling Han humphed. "Waving a chicken feather like it is a token of authority, who do you think you are?" He took the initiative to attack. A fist flashed out and the images of 7 dragons appeared, heading towards Ao Xinglai in an assault. Chapter 346, Crafty. Chapter 346, Crafty. Ao Xinglai merely gave a cold humph and waved the Black Star Sword. A dark light appeared in which spots of starlight flickered, yet it was this light that easily destroyed the 7 dragon images. This was a 5th-tier spirit tool. Even if it was not fully activated, it still had the power on the level of the spiritual pedestal tier. Ling Han was indeed a monster as he possessed 16 battle stars at the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but how could 16 battle stars compare with the spiritual pedestal tier? That was the same logic as how when Ling Han drew out the demon birth sword when he was merely in the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier and caused even a king of demonic beasts in the spiritual ocean tier to feel dread. Haha, now that the Black Star Sword is out, this guy would only be able to bow down before its might. That's natural. In the hands of Ao Xinglai, even if the Black Star Sword cannot display the might of the spiritual pedestal tier, its grade as a spirit tool is authentic. With Ao Xinglai's prowess, he should be able to release 1% of its power. Such might would qualify him to stand against any opponent below the spiritual pedestal tier. No matter how monstrous you are, it's useless. The spectators commented respectively. From the looks of things, this battle that had at first been filled with uncertainty had lost all suspense, and Ling Han would very quickly be defeated. Ling Han frowned. The Black Star Sword was indeed powerful, and if he were to stand barehanded against it, the results would really be uncertain, unless he could upgrade his physique to the Iron Sheet tier that would really be enough to stand firm against a mid-level spirit tool. Would he have to use the Demon Birth Sword? A level 10 spirit tool was naturally capable of easily dominating the Black Star Sword, and if these two crashed against one another, he was certain that the Black Star Sword would definitely be shattered. There was no other possible conclusion. But the problem now was that once the Demon Birth Sword was used, how many covetous eyes of those old monsters would this kind of supreme treasure attract? How could it be that he could not deal with a son of Ao Feng without relying on the Demon Birth Sword? Ling Han's pride was instantly challenged. His real trump card was not the Demon Birth Sword, nor was it the indestructible Heaven Scroll. It was the Black Tower within him. Fine, then let us contend with each other for now. Young man, you should also receive a strike from me. Ao Xinglai charged over, sword in hand. He waved the Black Star Sword, and instantly, 6 flashes of sword chi rushed forwards. Every flash of sword chi was as black as ink. These flashes of sword chi have been compounded by the Black Star Sword and possessed the destructive nature of the Black Star Sword. Ling Han's fist shot forwards, 6 flashes of fist chi formed into 6 dragon images and met the incoming sword chi. Pu, 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 pu. Every flash of sword chi sliced each dragon image in two, and it seemed as if the 6 flashes of sword chi were practically unscathed, continuing to slash towards Ling Han. Exclamations of surprise arose from the audience. In the battle that Ling Han had against Yang Chong's spear chi was similarly compounded by his spirit tool, yet was completely unable to stand firm against the fist chi Ling Han delivered through his bare fists, but now, it was completely the other way round. They could only say that the Black Star Sword was really too strong. Don't think that there was merely a small margin that separated a level 4 and a level 5 spirit tool. How many martial artists were separated by the breach from one martial arts tier to the next? In the eyes of one in the spiritual pedestal tier, all in the spiritual ocean tier could completely be considered mere ants. Ling Han's figure swayed, he used the shadow wind motion. He dodged all 6 flashes of sword chi as if he himself was a ghost. Ha 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 ha. You can't even receive 1 flash of sword chi from me, yet you still dream of exchanging blows with me? Ao Xinglai sneered. He himself already possessed 16 battle stars, but together with the Black Star Sword, he had battle prowess that was close to 1 battle star of the spiritual pedestal tier. How could this not even sweep away all opponents in the spiritual ocean tier? This guy has the Black Star Sword in hand, and could completely dominate Han Ling single-handedly. He does not need to worry over wasting any energy at all. Yet previously, he had not challenged Han Lin at all and allowed us to be humiliated, Ao Fengxing said in a low voice to the other 4 brothers, a cold light flickering in his eyes. Despicable. Ao Jian's hands curled tightly into fists. He was just planning to use Han Lin to trample over all of us, and then he would come up with a dominating victory. That way, everyone in the world would only remember that there is an Ao Xinglai in the Ao clan. Let us join forces, otherwise, we would completely appear inferior to him, Ao Mingjie suggested. All right. Agreed. The other 5 sons of the Ao clan nodded respectively. Later, they would go seek out Ao Jiancheng. They did not believe that with the combined forces of 6 of the 7 sons of Ao family, they would still be unable to defeat Ao Xinglai, who was all by himself. Who? The Black Star Sword waved forwards in a slash. The 6 flashes of sword chi that shot forwards were like black dragons, indestructible and shockingly terrifying. From the looks of things at the moment, Ao Xinglai was indeed dominating the battle single-handedly, and showed an invincible image. No matter how anyone looked at it, there was no way Ling Han would be able to win. Meanwhile, Ling Han was very troubled. He had at least 4 ways in which he could turn the flow of the battle around. The first was for the Black Tower to express its might. According to Small Tower, it was capable of even destroying this whole world. However, this would attract the attention of those supreme bosses in the upper realm. In that case, the Black Tower would definitely be snatched away, and he would be killed like an ant. There was no need to consider this option. The second way was for the Black Tower to instill power into him and allow his cultivation level to soar all the way up to the first layer of spiritual pedestal tier. Then, he would be able to smack Ao Xinglai to death with a casual wave of his hand. However, the later the installation of power from the Black Tower takes place, the better it would be for him. This implicated a chance for him to wash away his flaws and cleanse his essence, and Ling Han did not want to waste it simply like this. At the moment, he was not considering this option. The third was to draw out the demon birth sword, but he had already considered the consequences of such a move previously, so he similarly put this option aside. Then there was only the fourth option left, and that was to once again activate the Eye of Truth to distinguish the weak points of his opponent. If Ao Xinglai was really in the spiritual pedestal tier, the Eye of Truth would be useless. A mystical power was not a divine being, and could only upgrade his battle prowess to a certain limit. However, Ao Xinglai was only capable of having a sliver of the battle prowess of the spiritual pedestal tier by depending on the Black Star Sword, and this gave Ling Han a slight chance. He could only choose to suffer the backlash. Compared with the other 3 options, using the Eye of Truth was still the safest option. Immediately, a gold-colored pattern lit up in his right eye. The world appeared in front of his eyes in a different form. Time slowed down incredibly, or even stagnated. Yet at the same time, a stream of bloody tears dripped from his eye. Since he had overused the Eye of Truth, he ultimately still suffered much. Kill. Ling Han suddenly advanced and charged towards Ao Xinglai. He dodged the Black Star Sword and the 6 flashes of sword chi, and faced Ao Xinglai directly. Hiss. Everyone was astonished. Ling Han actually managed to break through successfully. Could it be that the flow of the battle was going to be turned around now? Yet Ao Xinglai did not show the slightest bit of anxiety, and said coldly, "I already knew that your movements are weird, so how could I not have made prior preparations?" His sword trembled, and there actually shot forward another flash of sword chi. 7 flashes of sword chi. No one could have guessed that Ao Xinglai had still kept some of his ability in reserve. His limit was not 6 flashes of sword chi, but rather 7. A ruler of martial arts. What a crafty guy. The 7th flash of sword chi was as black as ink, and struck towards Ling Han's chest. Even Ling Han had not foreseen this would happen. However, he had lived 200 years in his last life, and in the last period of his lifetime, he had traveled to various unimaginably dangerous ancient sites, so his ability to cope with sudden changes was definitely first grade. Otherwise, he would have long died an uncountable number of times. His figure inconceivably turned over and managed to avoid the fatal injury to his chest. At the same time, his right fist continued in an attack towards Ao Xinglai's face. Peng! A strike instantly hit right below Ling Han's ribs. How powerful was the sword chi that it managed to tear an opening in his defenses of the body of rock cliff. Blood gushed forth as if it was from a fountain, and Ao Xinglai was also flung away from this punch. Ao Xinglai landed on the ground with a somersault. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood which contained 2 shattered pieces of his teeth. He could not help but be both angered and shocked. Though Ling Han's injury was far heavier than his own, he had actually used the Black Star Sword. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,